product market fit. I am joined by my very good friend and an incredible startup community organizer. Camille McGinnis is here all the way from Canada. So, Camille, will you just say hi to everyone and then I'll give you an awesome introduction that you deserve?
Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. So Camille is going to be helping out with the question moderation. So you'll see that as you type in questions, they'll go to Camille, and then Camille will filter out ones and make sure they end up in the right spot. And she's doing this because she's not only an incredible person and a very good friend, she's also an amazing contributor to the startup community around the world. In particular, she touches almost all of the communities in Canada and lends a hand there, supporting them in a number of different ways, helping them organize events, helping them educate them on ecosystem growth. So big thanks to Camille for taking the time to hang out with us today. So let's dive in. I'm going to get started now. There are going to be some people straggling in, and we're going to go over just some of the basics of today's session, and just so that we can get some of those logistics out of the way first. So, I see a question here about is this going to be recorded, which is a good question. And yes, this will be recorded. So we will send out the recording to everyone who's registered after this. Some of the exercises that we go through today won't be available, but the recording absolutely will be. Okay, so let's talk about our goals today. So just real quick, our goals are going to be to make sure you have a definition of product market fit that you can take action on. 2, I want you to know your next step to finding product market fit. And 3, I want you to know how to take that next step. So that's my goals for you as a result of this workshop. Before we dive into those, though, I want to give another big thank you to Founder Institute for organizing this event. So Founder Institute is an incredible organization that has chapters around the world, and they help early stage founders understand what it's going to take to start their companies. I've worked with them for several years now, and I've mentored at dozens of their programs around the world. And they really offer some incredible structure, great group of peers to work with, and then a mentoring network that is unparalleled. So if you're interested in starting a company and those things are of interest to you, I definitely recommend checking them out. So check out our local Founder Institute chapter in your neck of the woods, and big thank you to them for making this possible today. All right. So today we're going to push the envelope in several ways. So the first is that you're going to actually be pushing on yourself and your company. You'll be working on your company. But we're also pushing the envelope in terms of the technology we're using to do this session. So as you can see, there's some interesting and fun stuff happening on the website that you're on right now. And this platform, I just want to tell you a little bit about it. It was built entirely out of love. So I love doing this, and I love the opportunity to get to work with people like you to help you pursue your entrepreneurial dreams. And to be honest, I've been waiting to do this kind of workshop for a long time because I teach by experiential activities. That's how I teach. Everything I do is learn by doing. And the existing platforms and technologies available today, they don't let me teach that way. So it's mostly just crappy webinars where someone talks to their slides. We're going to actually do exercises today where you're going to work on your startup. And so basically I built this platform so that we could do that today. So with that comes a lot of my energy and passion, and then just a heads up, with that also comes some bugs, because this is going to be one of the very first times that I'm using this platform. So please be patient with me, but I really appreciate any feedback you have about the entire platform as we go in and try and make this a really engaging and impactful experience for you. Okay, so there is a delay. So I am speaking probably 10 to 30 seconds before you're hearing me. So just a heads up that that's happening. And then I've just added, so Camille can speak to this. I was actually up all last night adding the ability for me to give you feedback on your exercises. So you'll actually be doing some exercises, and then I will have the ability to actually give you feedback on them. If you don't want that feedback, part of that feedback will mean that I can share it with everyone else. If you don't want that, then just replicate the experiences on paper. I will ask for your permission at some point. So if you want to, you can just opt out and say, no, I don't want you to provide feedback. But I just want you to know that that's out there. You will have the ability to get feedback from me depending on how many people request it. Okay, so that's feedback for me, or feedback for you. Feedback for me. If you've got it, just send me an email. Justin at customerdevlabs.com. Feedback about the content, about the platform, about anything at all. I'd love to hear it. Okay. So before I go on, I just want to make sure. So Camille, if we want to upvote these questions, like is the live video playing? That one's worth showing. Then yes, the live video is playing. If you're not seeing it, then refresh your page. But of course, I'm just realizing now that if you're listening to me, it's not going to do you any good. Okay, so I'm going to keep on going then. I'm hearing some people saying the live video is not playing. Let me just, if you're seeing the live video, can you just give us a heads up in the comments? Can you say you're seeing the video? And before I go on, I'm just going to hang out and make sure that this is working. Okay, great. So the number of people are seeing it. Okay, good. So Camille, yeah, if you want to just, I'm going to highlight this one as answered. Okay, great. All right, here we go. So let's explore the platform. So you guys are doing great. You already know how the questions piece works, and you're filling in your questions below. That's perfect. So like I said, Camille is in there, and it's her job to make sure that the right questions pop up. So if you don't see your question pop up, that's just because she either hasn't gotten to it yet, or there's some other questions that cover it, or it might not just be the right time for us to answer that question. Okay, so to my right, hopefully this is the right, you're going to see a number of activities pop up. The first is the slides. So you have access to all of my slides, and you can go through them at any pace you want. So you can download them, you can copy them, you can go forwards or backwards. Those are all there for you. Now, let's talk about another exercise. Let's make the Notes tab active. So what I've just done is I've turned on the Notes tab, and I've taken taken away the focus from the slides, but you can still go back to the slides. In the notes section, that is fully editable. You can go in there and you can write whatever notes you want. And I built this so that you don't have to switch between multiple tabs if you don't want to, multiple windows. So go ahead and edit that like crazy. Those are yours to do whatever you want with. And then when you're all done, just copy and paste them and send them in an email to yourself. So you'll also notice if you scroll down, there's a takeaway section down there. So in the takeaway spot, you can actually write in, we're going to take some of these things from the exercises that you have, and you can actually type them in there. So just know that this is available to you, and we'll sort of refer back to that. Okay, so with that in mind, let's talk about our agenda. So it's about 6:10. We're right on schedule. I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am. I'm going to make sure you guys know what product market fit is. I'm going to make sure you know the path to product market fit. And I'm going to, hopefully we'll have time to talk about who your early adopters are. If we don't, I'll point you to a resource that's going to help, but maybe we'll get to this point, and then we'll wrap this whole thing up. Okay, this is going to be a 2-hour workshop. I highly recommend you stay for the entire thing because it is going to be interactive, and like I say, the video will be available and we'll send it all out to you, but the interactive exercises will not be. Okay, so who am I and why are you listening to me? Well, my background, I'm an engineer. I started at Microsoft, worked there for about 5 years. I worked on the operating system, and after 5 years, I decided, you know what, I've enjoyed working really hard, but I was working really hard to build someone else's dream. And so I decided to leave to start my dream and start my company. And so I worked really, really hard at Nimbus Health. So Nimbus Health was a healthcare software company, and for 18 months, I worked day and night building the best technology I could possibly build. A technology, it turns out, that no one wanted. So I was working so hard, and it turns out that my customers just didn't care how hard I was working. They didn't care about the product I was building. I was actually really, really devastated because I had been so successful at so many other things in life that when I started this company and found that it failed, it was really, really disappointing. So as I was reeling from this failure, a friend of mine recommended this book. called The 4 Steps to the Epiphany. And this is actually the start of the lean startup movement. And this book talks all about customer development and lean startup theory, but it doesn't talk about how to actually apply it. So it took me actually 3 more years and several different companies trying to experiment with these techniques before I really understood them well enough to actually turn my healthcare software company around. So that's what we're trying to do today. We're trying to take that 3-year time span and we're trying to try and compress it at least a little bit. So that you don't have to relearn all the stuff that I learned and maybe go accelerate your progress a little bit faster. So I started a blog as a result of that experimentation. It's called Customer Development Labs, and that's where I write up all of the practical advice that I've collected over the years about how to apply these techniques, not just why they're important, but how to actually do them. As a result, I've had the opportunity to mentor around the world in person, and now we're getting to try this new kind of online workshop stuff. So I'm really grateful to be here and be doing that with you guys. I work with startup accelerators around the world, members of the Global Accelerator Network, Techstars, etc. I work with a number of institutions in terms of curriculum development, Startup Weekend, obviously Founder Institute, and I'm a mentor and speaker at organizations like the Lean Startup Conference, Lean Startup Machine. I also happen to be an author of a workbook series, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, a little bit later. So, questions. If you have any questions about me, questions about my criminal history, questions about the world records I've broken, any of that kind of stuff, toss them in the question section, and then I will answer them at the appropriate time. Okay, so with that, we're rocking and rolling. And then Camille, just heads up, if you want to pull any of these questions down after I've answered them, like the recorded one and the notes visible stuff. Actually, I'll answer that notes visible one now. So are the notes visible to me? The answer is no. The notes are not visible to me. But let me know in the comments if they should be. I thought about it because I kind of wanted to read people's notes just to see what they were getting, but I also felt like it would be kind of an invasion of privacy. So I haven't made them so that I can read them, but just know that I would love your feedback on whether or not I should do that. Okay, so I'm going to do just a little maintenance here. Okay. Okay, great. So with that in mind, we've covered who I am. Now let's talk about what is product market fit. Now it turns out finding product market fit is hard for a number of reasons. The biggest reason it's difficult is that teams don't define it. So if you're having trouble even like wrapping your head around like what is product market fit or like how do I get it, it's likely because you haven't actually defined it. And that's normal. Most founders haven't. We're going to solve that problem today. The 2 other reasons it's difficult is that it's overwhelming. So number 2, someone teaches you about validation. You're like, okay, I should test all of these things. But then it becomes overwhelming because like, oh my gosh, I have to test my feature set and my price point and my marketing channels and my copy and my customer segment. And it's like, how do I know where to start? How do I know what to do? And it's simply overwhelming. The third reason that it's difficult to find product market fit is that there are a lot of people talking about why you should go do it, but there's not a lot of information out there about how to do that. So I'm not going to be able to cover the entire journey today, but I want you to know how to do at least the next step in your journey. So let's start with the first one. Let's define product market fit. So we're going to go to the source, the person who originally coined this term. His name is Mark Andreessen, and he defined product market fit as being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. All right. So being in a good market. So what exactly did he mean by a good market? Well, I'd argue he leaves good market defined vaguely because he wants you to define what that means. A good market is up to you to determine. Now, why would I say that? Because your startup is a vehicle to achieve your goals. Now, you can have several reasons for wanting to start a company. You might want to change the world. You might want to help people. Have a big impact. You might want to have personal financial freedom. You might want to have autonomy over your time. You might want to, have a big exit or a big sale. You want to do all of these things that will affect the external world. But ultimately, the thing that's really driving you at the end of the day is some internal change that you're looking for. All of those things, having an impact on the world, having financial freedom, serving people, building a great product, those are all things that are externally interesting because they change the way you think about yourself or feel about yourself. And so what I want you to recognize is that the way you find product market fit is by identifying what change you want to see for yourself. Why are you really starting this company? So we'll talk about why this is interesting, because when we take this phrase and we take this mindset and incorporate it into the definition of product market fit, it goes from being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market to being in a market that can achieve your goals with a product that can satisfy that market. So simplifying this a little bit, product market fit means satisfying a market that satisfies you. Satisfying a market that satisfies you. Let me tell you, I've got a number of friends here in the Valley who have gotten traditional classical success, right? Acquisitions, piles of money, like millions and millions of dollars of money. And are they happier and more fulfilled after having done that? No. Why not? Because they didn't take the time to understand why they were really starting the company. If they had taken the time and sort of rolled back and say, wait, what am I really looking for out of this experience? They would have known what to look for along the journey. And I'll tell you, getting that money doesn't make things easier. It makes things actually a little more difficult. We can talk about why later, but ultimately, the clarity that you need to find product market fit lies within you. And so we're going to take the time to make sure you know what that looks like. Okay, a couple other benefits you get from understanding what satisfies you. Number one, it's going to make all of your decisions about your startup going forward easier. If you've probably already experienced this already, like which product should I build? Which customer should I serve? What features should I have in my product? How much should I charge? How should I market? All of these questions are difficult to answer if you don't know what you're looking for. By understanding what it is exactly you're looking for, it will make answering all of those questions easier. Number two, it will give you the confidence to pivot. And I'll tell you, this is the reason that the exercise we're about to do exists. The other sort of fluffy stuff, like that's really interesting and I think it's important, but this is the reason why I came up with this exercise. I was working with Founder Institute and a number of other startups at other accelerators, and people would go out and they would do this validation work, and then one of two things would happen. Number one, they would be so attached to their idea, their product that they wanted to build, that when they went out and found that customers didn't actually want that, when they got data that was contrary to the vision they wanted to build, they could either do one of two things. They could either ignore the data, which is what they did most of the time. It's like, oh, well, people just don't get it. I'm going to just keep going, which means they just wasted their time doing all that validation work, and they're building something that people don't want anyway. Or the second thing that they would do is they would simply throw in the towel and give up. So what we're going to do by moving your attention away from the product that you want to build to the outcome you want to see for yourself, you're going to free yourself to actually listen to the data you get from your customers. So on your journey to product market fit, it's not like a determined, like this is what I'm going to do. You will really be able to listen and actually make a path that's going to lead you to product market fit. All right. The third thing that this exercise is going to do is it's going to help unify your team. So whether you're a solo founder now or whether you have a team, eventually you are going to have a conversation with all of your co-founders about what product market fit looks like to them. Because it turns out you're doing this all for the same, you're all doing this to achieve some sort of outcome for yourself. And if you don't understand what that outcome is that your co-founder wants to see, you're going to eventually butt heads and disagree, and you may end up actually having to dissolve the company. Because if you want to have a certain impact on a certain number of people, and this person wants to have financial freedom, and those two things don't align, then you'll find that you're disagreeing with each other all the time. So this exercise is going to give you an opportunity to actually sit down with your co-founders and have the difficult conversation about why are you really starting this company? And if you're aligned, then great, then you'll be able to go even faster. But if you're not aligned, better to know that sooner than later so that you guys can go find your own product market fit and other opportunities. Okay. So, declaring victory is going to be our first exercise. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the declaring victory activity here, and I'm going to turn it on now. So, you guys should see this here, and then I'm going to turn on my screen so that hopefully you guys can see. And then we're going to basically do this together. You can go ahead if you want, but I'm going to recommend we do this together. So you're going to click the start button, and when you do, you need to be very impressed by my ability to get this thing to fly in. So once you've sort of taken that in and are duly impressed by how awesome that is, just a couple things to note. Like, this wood background is intentional because this is trying to represent an actual worksheet that I use in my workshops that I do. So, okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to basically fill this worksheet out. So the worksheet will walk you through product market fit. So go ahead and click next on here. And then what you'll see is a little date field here. So if you go ahead and write in the date, so for where I am, it's 4/26/2016. You go ahead and write your own date in there. And then click next. And then the worksheet says, I want to create a. And here you're going to write down the type of product or service you think you want to create. Now, if you don't have one, don't worry about it. You can say, well, I'm not sure yet. But if you do have one, then go ahead and enter it in here. So I'm going to say, I want to create lean startup peer groups. Okay, so once you're done with your product, go ahead and click next. And then you're going to write in the customers that you want to serve. So who is it that you want to help? Basically, what's the idea of the people that you want to serve here? So in my case, it's going to be startup founders. Now, if you don't know who you want to serve, this is a really, really important exercise to do. And just take a couple seconds to actually think about it, because at the end of the day, this is who you'll be working with for the next 5 years. So I highly recommend that it's someone that you're interested in serving, because the product may come and go, but the customers you serve, you can find a lot of passion derived from helping these people out. All right, so once you've got that done, we're going to move on to step 3. And step 3 here is to fold this worksheet. So I'm going to click next to get that little box out of the way, and then click next again, and then we're going to fold this worksheet over. Again, you need to be very impressed by how I'm able to fake this folding. Ooh, wasn't that magnificent? Okay, so next you're going to see a new victory declaration in front of you. So this is basically a contract you're signing with yourself. Okay, so it says, I'm seeing a couple questions here. I cannot type in the box. Okay, so if you can't type in the box, maybe try another web browser, or, oops, that was the wrong one. Type in, maybe try another web browser or try refreshing. But I would love to know details about that. So maybe send me an email and we'll figure that out. Okay, my answer is too long. Lines breaks, that's just fine. No worries at all. I pressed next by mistake. How do I undo? Oh, you can simply, if you press that and go too far, just click the prev button. You'll go backwards and you can see what shows up there. Okay, so next. So you've got this new contract with yourself. This contract says, I promise on this day that even if it means never developing a lean startup peer group, or whatever yours says, and even if it means never helping startup founders, I will declare victory when I achieve, and then click next. Number of things. So what we're going to do here is we're going to shift the attention away from the product that you want to build, because it's very likely the world doesn't want that product. I hate to be the one to tell you this, but I'm speaking from experience. It's likely that no one wants this product. And it's very possible that these people don't even want your help. So by associating your success with these things that you can't control, things that are external to you, you are setting yourself up for a very, very long road to finding product market fit. So instead what we want to do is we want to aim your vision towards achieving these measurable things for yourself. So some examples of things that you might want to measure for yourself. And this is going to feel a little uncomfortable. I just want to acknowledge that. This is going to feel uncomfortable because it's likely you've never thought about sort of like why you are starting this company. But that's why we're taking this time, is to make this uncomfortable. So number of things. I'm going to put in something easy. I'm going to put in 1 million things is dollars in the bank. So for me, I can say I'm going to achieve victory when I put $1 million in the bank. Now, you might have a reaction to this like, oh my gosh, this guy's just starting a company for the money? Like, who does that? Like, that's super greedy. Well, it turns out that if what I really want at the end of the day is financial freedom, the freedom to be able to do, to just do these workshops all day long, all the time, then I need to have some money in the bank so that I can do that. So what we want to do is basically focus on your ultimate success criteria. And I'm going to give you probably 90 seconds to think about this. Just sit and think about it. So that you can really think about, like, what is it that you want to achieve for yourself? What change are you looking for in starting a company? So it can be any number of things. It can be dollars in the bank. It can be IPOs. Like, hey, I want to IPO one company. That's what's important to me. It can be, I want to start a company that employs, 100 people. It can be, I want to have served X number of customers. Now, it can be customers in general. It can't be the specific customers that you've called out, because those people might not want your help. But it can be customers at large, if that's what you're looking to do. Okay, so I'm going to give you 90 seconds. I'm not going to talk very much. And I want you to just think about what personal thing that you want to see for yourself. And just an exercise that can help is that if you close your eyes and you imagine that you are successful, fast forward, okay, I am a successful founder. What's different about your life? I'm going to iterate this one more time, then I'm going to shut up. It needs to be about you. It cannot be about the product, and it cannot be about the customer. This needs to be about you, and it has to be measurable. Okay, 90 seconds, rock and roll. Here we go. I'm going to take a look at some of these questions and see if I can answer them real quick. Let me go back here. I'm going to turn on the website. Okay, so while I answer these questions, and if you're filling out the rest of that sheet, if you click next one more time, you'll see a want feedback section show up here. So if you want feedback on the exercise, go ahead and just type in yes. If you type in yes, then I'll go and look for it, and then I'll be able to actually look and see, oh, hey, is this measurable or is it not? If you type no or anything else, then I won't show it, and I won't give you feedback. Okay, so let's just take a look at these questions real quick. What if there are multiple beneficiaries to my system? Okay, so in terms of, this is a great question, and actually I'm going to, I'll answer it briefly now. For So if you've got a multi-sided market, as far as this worksheet goes, you can put in both. That's just fine. Put in both sides of the market. As far as validating both of those things, I'm going to talk about that later, which one you should do first. So I'll get to that basically probably towards the end of the session. We'll get on which one you should do first. But if I don't, remind me, I've got a whole blog post written up about it. Okay, and then a question about will you be able to save this worksheet? So I haven't gotten the ability to actually save the worksheet yet. What you can do is you can copy the image and you can save the image, or there's a section in the notes where you can go in and you can write in, and I will actually have you at the end of this write in your victory declaration. It's a great question there. Okay. Okay, so then if I'm going to develop a product, okay, the rest of these issues, so the bandwidth issues, so if you're having bandwidth issues, then maybe hang out with us for as best you can. You can run on a delay, and that's fine. You can just hit pause and then just hang out, and maybe it will buffer for a little bit and be a little better. And then you can hit play, and then I'll try and leave the exercises up for as long as I can so you can get to those. Okay, so that was that one. All right, so let's go take a look at these, and let's see if we can get some feedback and see if anyone wants some feedback that's out there. And so I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here like this. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to search for people who want feedback. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to start with this first one here. And note that your name is not visible, so you won't be able to tell what your name is, but thank you so much for volunteering. This is going to be really helpful for other people out there. Okay, let me see if I can get my webcam up here as well, just so you can see me as I'm talking. Webcam, here we go. And I'm going to put me in the corner like that. Okay. So, to help humans and to understand computers, great, all people and companies. Okay. For the purpose of this exercise, that's going to be just fine. Ultimately, we'll want a niche pretty hard. But for the purpose of this is great. $5,000 monthly revenue. This is really, really, really good. So great job making this happen. This is just really well done. It's measurable, and it's about you. This is great. The only thing I would recommend considering changing here is shifting from revenue to either income or to profit. The reason being that you can start a company that makes that generates $5,000 a month in revenue, but spends $6,000, and then ultimately that might not be so fun. So maybe that's okay for you. Maybe that's what you're looking for. But I definitely recommend thinking about like, well, that's more, the revenue is more of a business metric. It's not like a personal one, but income is a personal one. So I recommend changing that. By the way, if you want to change it now, you can, and then everyone else will see it. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to a couple other folks and see what else is out there. Yeah, so there you go. Income, very good. Nicely done. Okay, so what else do we got here? So we got $100,000 in annual revenue. Again, okay, so yeah, just so everyone knows that obviously I won't be able to give feedback to everybody. And so if you're hearing me give feedback that's similar to yours, like, hey, this is going to be $100,000 in annual revenue, then again, think of how whatever feedback I'm giving to someone else, how it can apply to you. So for this person, I would recommend again that you change it from revenue to either income or profit, because revenue is a business metric, not a personal one. Okay, let's see what we got. Oh, okay, this one's cool. Okay, let's see if we can get this here. So I want one real change in education patterns. Okay, real change in education patterns. So I like that it's different. I like that it's. I mean, money ones are great. Don't get me wrong. Money is a really, really nice one because it's super easy to measure. But it's good to have this nice change of pace. So I want one real change in education patterns. Now, the only question I have here, maybe you know what that means, but I'm not sure I know what real change in education patterns means. And basically, what you're going to do is you're going to turn this metric into something that you can track yourself towards over time. Like, am I getting closer to this or am I getting farther away? As you run experiments, like if I build this product, will I get closer to this thing or will I get farther away? So what you might want to think about is, why you want to see that change in education. So the change in education pattern is a little external. You're saying, I want to see one change in education patterns at large. But I want you to think about, like, why do you want that? Like, what is it about you that wants to do that? Do you want to feel pride? You're saying you feel useful. That's great. Okay, so do you want to have, like, some number of people using your software? Do you want to have some number of people get some new education? So think about how you can measure, like, the actual impact of the thing you're doing, especially in terms of, like, your own self-pride as you're going forward. Because again, a real change in education patterns, it just might be a little hard to measure. Okay, I'm gonna do two more, and I'll try and find some different ones here and see what else we got. Okay, so money ones are great. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Okay, so this one says, number one, if I manage to completely build a product, achieve all goals. Okay, so this is a really good one. It's good in that all this person wants to do is build a product. And if that's true, then rock on. Like, just build your product. In fact, you probably don't even need to be in this workshop, because this workshop is about people who want to take their product and, like, achieve something with the product. And I'm not downplaying what you want to achieve at all. Like, just go out and do it. Like, build a product. Just go crazy. No one may use it, but that might be okay. If you're saying you just want to build a product, then go for it. Save yourself the time. Hop on this webinar or web shop and then go rock and roll. If you do want people to use your product, though, definitely think about why it is you want people to use your product. Okay, last one. Okay, it's 5 people. Oh, interesting. This person wants 5 people to switch from hating HK to loving it. From hating HK to loving it. I'm gonna. Is that at Hong Kong maybe? If you want to, you can edit this, and I can see you change it, or you can type into the feedback section. So I'm gonna ask, what does HK mean? And then you can write back to me if you want. Hong Kong. Okay, I'm going to say that's yes. Okay, so great. You just need 5 people to change from hating Hong Kong to liking it. That's super measurable. That's awesome. Okay, really cool. So let's. I think that's a great one. That's a fun one. I haven't heard that one before. So very cool. Okay, so if you have any other questions about this, I just want to take a look. Well, there's quite a few people who want feedback, which is really exciting. Maybe what I'll do is, when I'm all done after the 2-hour workshop, I'll go through here and I'll look through a couple more, and we'll post them up, and I'll give you some thoughts if they're any different. Okay, but with that done, I'm going to just take a look at the questions that we've got piled up here and see what else is going on. If we have any that are really relevant to this exercise, then I'm going to try to highlight those. And Camille will help me do that. Okay, so what do we got here? Multiple beneficiaries. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Okay, is it about going from? Okay, let's take a look. Is it about going from what you want to achieve and build your product from this goal? Is it about going from what you want to achieve and build your product from this goal? So I think I'm going to try my best to answer this question. Correct me if I don't get this, Larby. Once you described this goal and you've got this written down, a couple amazing things are going to happen. Number one, you're going to be able to track how well you're progressing to this goal. There's something called success metrics that you're going to put in as you do your experimentation. And those success metrics are going to determine whether you go down one path or you go down another. If you don't write down this goal now, when it comes time to define that success metric, should I go this way or should I go this way, you won't know the answer and you won't be able to tell. So this goal is helping you to identify not just what product to build, but what customer to serve, how you reach that customer, how much you need to charge that customer, what features you need to build for that customer, and ultimately what product you need to build for that customer. So this goal is going to influence all of those things. It's going to influence your entire company from top to bottom. So hopefully that helps answer that question. If I didn't, go ahead and chime in, and I'll try and fix that. Okay. Let's see. Is the victory a goal that has nothing to do with a startup, or they need to be related to my to the startup? My victory is to build schools and hospitals in India, but that has nothing to do with my startup, which is a social stock trading firm. Oh, what a great, great question. Okay, so what happens when, look, ultimately my victory is this thing over here, but I'm starting off by doing this thing over here, right? So I want to do something great with my time. I want to be sort of volunteering, but ultimately I'm starting with a stepping stone. So I got two different answers to that question. Number one is, I love that you're capturing the ultimate victory. So everyone out there who has put in an intermediary metric on here, like oh, I'm just going to put the success metric for my first startup. I want you to take some advice from Amar here, and I want you to actually change it so that it is your ultimate victory. By defining your ultimate victory, you can actually run some calculations and say, okay, if ultimately I want to build schools and hospitals in India, that's going to take this amount of money, X amount of money, which means that the stock trading platform has to generate this amount of money, which means that I need to charge this people this much, and blah, 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 blah. So you want to capture your ultimate victory here, and then we'll consider everything else as a stepping stone along the way. So definitely go ultimate. Now, just as an aside, this is just like me, personal anecdote. I would go straight to doing the hospitals. Like why mess around with stock trading? Like, let's find a way that you can go and do what you're super passionate about. Now, I don't know your situation. I don't know the financials. I don't know any of that stuff. But I do know that what I'm doing now, like serving early stage startups, and you guys in help, it's something that I love unconditionally, and I'm really excited to do that. Needless to say, I'm not doing this because I am trying to make a huge pile of money. But it is super fulfilling to work with you guys and help you pursue your dreams. So for whatever that's worth, this is just my own personal anecdote. Okay. So I'm going to move on unless there's any other pressing questions there. And then Camille, you can just hop in if I've missed something there. All right. So let's get back to our slides here. So we've just done, we haven't even finished declaring victory. What am I doing? We haven't even finished yet. Sorry. I have to go back. Oh my gosh. Okay. We haven't even finished yet. Okay. What will you feel? Now, okay, so if you haven't already done this, I want you to write in your emotion. So I want you to write in the emotion that is associated with achieving this goal. Probably most of you have already done this. If you haven't, the reason why you want to do this is that ultimately the reason why we do anything is because we want an emotional change. When I say anything, I mean anything. I mean why we eat, why we sleep, why we buy a new iPhone, why you're at this workshop, why you want to start a company. They're all because of some emotion that you want to feel that you're not feeling now, or that you want to get rid of that you are feeling. That's the way the world works. That's the way every being on the planet works all the time. So the faster you can sort of come to terms with that, the faster you can actually get what it is that you want. Now, the same thing is true for your customers, by the way. Everything that they do is to resolve, achieve, or to eliminate some sort of emotion. So write this emotion down. I'm going to do for mine, I'm going to say it is security. And this is ultimately what you're looking for at the end of the day. Okay. And then finally, well, almost finally, you can sign it. So if you sign down here, this is now your victory declaration. And you can post this somewhere, or we'll put it in the notes section, and you can take it with you. You can print it out, and then just remind yourself what your ultimate victory is. Now, one other thing that I just want to tell you about, your co-founders, you're going to go through this exact exercise with your co-founders as well. So what I want you to do is do it all separately. Whether they're on your team now or they come on later, do it. Have everyone do this exercise, and then compare what your victories are. And then ultimately, you want to merge the victories so that everyone, you know what they're looking for and they know what you're looking for. And if you can, combine them into one global victory. If you can't, now is the time to know that, because they're just not the right fit for you. Okay, so now let's move on. Okay, so, okay, this looks like let's take this top one. Okay. Defining a goal in a personal way makes it difficult to see how you would get buy-in from others to reach your goal rather than a vision for a company. Or am I missing something? No, Janelle, you are spot on. You are exactly right. Great question. Okay, so this is not a mission statement. I'm really glad you brought this up. By the way, other questions like this, like Janelle's question, questions that are like sort of pushing back, please, please, please ask them. Because the questions where you have doubts about what I'm saying, those are questions that other people are having too. And once we break through those, this will become even more impactful. So, Janelle, great question. This is not a mission statement. This is a personal victory statement. Your mission statement will come later. Your mission statement will come once you know what your team's goals are, what your team's individual goals are. Because remember, the way you're going to combine, the way you're going to actually build your company is by combining everyone's personal victory statement. And says, oh, this person wants to achieve this person wants to achieve this. We can combine those two. This person wants to achieve this other thing. That one, actually, it's not going to fit in our company. We can't help them do that. So let's find another person. You're going to combine them all together. And then from there, you're going to combine that with your customers' desires, and you're going to merge all of those. That will become your mission statement. That's how you're going to get everyone excited about what you're doing. But for right now, we're defining what you're looking for individually so that you and your team can get on the same page. So vision statement and all that kind of stuff, that comes later. And just by the way, when you're trying to recruit people, the most powerful tool that you can have is this exercise, or at least this kind of thinking. Because the reason why someone wants to leave their job or someone would want to work with you is it's all the same. It's all motivated by some emotion or some personal achievement they want. So if you can help them walk through this process, they will understand what they want better, and you will understand what they want better, and so you can help them achieve it. Fantastic question. Okay, so here we go. So how do I define a time frame that my product is going to need? It's going to need extra value addition, next version existing in the market. Okay. I think it's like sort of defining. I'm going to save this one because I'm not quite sure. I'm going to put that one back in the stack here. I'm not quite sure if that's related. If it is, go ahead and ask it again. Can a person have more than one victory condition? And another great question. Thank you, Michael. Yes, yes, yes. The more victory conditions you have, the better. Because that can, if that's really true for you, that can help you track towards those things. So I want $100,000 in annual salary, and I want to work with 5 people that I love hanging out with outside of work. And then, I want to impact 1,000 customers. Like, you can have all 3 of those. Absolutely. Speaking of which, let's make sure that these are all captured. If I go back to the notes section here, you can see down at the bottom where it says victory declaration in the takeaways. Go ahead and write in your victory declaration here. So this is going to be $1 million in the bank. So go ahead and write yours in your notes section there. All right, great questions. Okay. So let's forge ahead, shall we? So, just to recap, Mark Andreessen coined the phrase product market fit and said it is being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. We've just defined what a good market is. Product market fit is satisfying a market that satisfies you. By satisfying yourself and knowing what it is that you're looking for out of starting this company, it's going to make all of your decisions about what kind of product to build, what customers to serve, how much to charge, how to market it. All that stuff's going to be easier once you know what your goal is. It's going to give you the confidence to pivot because you're less emotionally attached to the actual thing you want to build and more attached to your personal outcomes. So you can actually listen to the feedback you're getting from customers and let go of things that don't deserve to be built. Finally, it's going to unify your team, which we talked about. Okay, again, questions, fire away. Otherwise, make sure you've put your takeaway in the notes section so you know what your victory is and you can take that with you. And then I am going to move on to step 2. Step 2 is the path to product market fit. So now that we've defined ultimately what you're looking for, let's talk about like how we start going there. All right, so how do you find product market fit? Well, I used to teach, and a number of people used to teach, or still teach, this notion of you need to test your riskiest assumption. So if you haven't heard of this, don't worry, I'll give you a brief overview. But basically the idea is that you get a tool like this. This is the business model canvas, or there's the lean canvas, or a number of other tools, or you just come up with it on your own. The idea being that you fill this thing out, and it's a great tool because it tells you all the things that you don't know about your company. It tells you all your assumptions. But it leaves you with a ton of questions after you fill this thing out. So you fill this thing out and answer who your customer segments are, your value proposition, all that kind of good stuff. But you get stuck with these questions like, where do I start exactly? Now that I know all these things I need to test about my company, like where do I start? And what tests should I run to actually test these things? Like how do I test my customer segments? How do I test my customer relationships? And then how do you actually run those tests? Like if I tell you, hey, you need to go run a false door test or a Wizard of Oz test, like I haven't told you how to actually run it and how to get validated back. So we're going to try and answer that question today, some of those questions. And that's why I've been working on this thing called the Focus Framework. And I've been working on this for about 2 years now. And it's a culmination of all the teaching that I've been doing at accelerators, with Founder Institute, a number of other organizations. And the goal of Focus is to take the entire validation process and break it into concrete individual steps. So instead of 9 big blobby boxes, individual steps. Then 2, we're going to order those steps for you. So before, in the riskiest assumption model, the idea was that, okay, you have to go figure out your riskiest assumption. And it's really difficult to know what's risky and what's not, especially if you've never had a successful company before. It's hard to know like what actually the risks are. And to know if you're right, it turns out that there's actually an order. I've worked with enough companies and I've seen it happen enough times. There's a very specific order you can go in that is extremely efficient in terms of identifying and validating your assumptions. Finally, it provides instructions and tools for each step along the way. So like the exercise we just did, that's the very first exercise inside of Focus. And so it provides a structured way to actually take progress towards achieving product market fit. So there are more exercises, the 5 interview checkpoint. There's some tools that can help you design your experiments. When I talked about success metrics before and how to define those, there's lots of exercises around that. There's several spreadsheets in here. When we were someone asked the question about, what is this tracking towards? So ultimately you use these spreadsheets and you put in, here's my ultimate goal. And based on my ultimate goal, how many customers do I need to reach? How much do I need to charge them? How many need to convert? How long do they need to be customers? And then once you've done all that, you get these graphs that tell you whether or not you're on a path to achieve your product market fit. So very tactical, very hands-on. And then there are tools that are going to help you put together your experiments as well. So this is a customer interview script generator. It will generate an interview script for you. So this is the Focus Framework. Yeah, so you'll see, but that's basically what I've been working on, and it's really important to me that that today is not just about Focus. That I want to make sure that you have these tools and you make progress regardless of whether or not you look into this more. But know that the exercises we do are all from Focus, and we'll do probably either 2 or maybe we'll get time for 3 today. And there's about 40 or so that are going to help you kind of along the way. Okay, so this path to product market fit, I remember when I said it was hard because we haven't defined it. Well, you solved that problem now. You know what you're looking for ultimately. It's hard for the second reason because it's overwhelming. And you can see how Focus is going to try and help solve that. It's going to take this sort of mash of like, oh, I have all this stuff to do and I don't know how to do it. And it's going to systematize it for you. It's going to lay it out exactly in the order that I've seen be most effective and efficient. And it's going to provide you steps to do that along the way. And it's going to answer sort of the how to do that question. So let's talk about the overwhelming problem, because I want to talk about the 5 riskiest assumptions. And I call them the 5 because there are 5 groups of risky assumptions. And we're just going to lay them out for you right now. I've seen and I've worked with enough startups, including my own, to know that these are the big 5. And this is the order they go in terms of riskiness to be most efficient in validating your company. So we start with the assumption that you can find people who are actively trying to solve the problem that your product wants to solve. It turns out if no one out there is actively trying to solve the problem that your product is going to help them solve, then you've got no company at all. There's simply no one to use your product. If you've got a product where it's like, oh, it's a really amazing product, but I have to educate people about it, I'm going to tell you, I've never seen that company work. There's always, always, always someone out there who's trying to solve some problem that a new product can solve for them and helps them do that. So that's the number one risky assumption. Can you find someone out there who you can really help, who wants your help? Which leads us into the second one, that these people out there that are trying to solve a problem actually want your help solving it. So there are people out there who might, they want some help solving it, but if you can't find them in a scalable way, if you can't offer them a solution in a way that resonates with them, basically if you can't market to them and get engaged with them, there's no company to be had either. So these are the top two riskiest assumptions. We're going to set the first one first and then the second one. Finally, if you can prove that there are people who are out there who are solving the problem, they want your help solving it, next you need to prove that they will pay you to solve it. And pay is in quotes here for a reason. Some companies, some of you guys said, you know what, my victory is based on revenue. I want to achieve a certain amount of revenue. That means that people are going to have to actually pay you. So we need to test, will they actually pay you? For other people that are like the person who wanted 5 people to like Hong Kong or love Hong Kong, then they're going to pay you in a different way. Maybe they will pay you, maybe you're an educational product or it's a tourist company and they're going to pay you by coming and visiting you. So pay can be usage as well, whatever thing you need to achieve your product market fit. So once you've proven that people actually want your help, that you can market to them, you can reach out to them, they want your help solving the problem, then you need to prove that they will pay you what you need to achieve product market fit in exchange for solving the problem. Fourth, and only fourth, do we actually test whether you can solve the problem. Now the reason why it's fourth is because it's risky. Building products is not necessarily easy, but it's not as risky as any of these other ones. Humans by nature are great problem solvers, and you are, because you're one of them, you are also a great problem solver, and it's very likely that you will be able to help someone solve their problem. It's less likely that you'll be able to do any of these other things. So we wait till the fourth one till we actually start solving the problem. Only after we solve the problem, and I'll show you how, do we actually test whether or not you're officially on a path to product market fit. But this one turns out to be the easiest one. So they go in order of both risk and ease. This one's definitely the hardest, and this one turns out to be the easiest. So these are the 5 riskiest assumptions, and I'm just going to ask Janelle's window. Janelle's question: are the slides changing in the video window? I can only see the declaration. Hopefully they are. Hopefully, I think they are. They should be. Everyone should see that. If you don't, let me know. If you do, you don't have to say anything. Okay. So here we go. So these are the 5 riskiest assumptions. Now they correspond to the 5 phases of product market fit. Each phase of achieving product market fit is associated with testing one of these 5 assumptions. So we start with the first phase, which is finding early adopters. These people who are already trying to solve the problem, those are our early adopters. They have a very special name. We might get to talk about them today, but those are the people who are actively trying to solve the problem. These are what we call early adopters. And the process of finding them, we do by running a set of tests, and we call them customer interviews. So we'll talk all about those later. I'll have some blog posts that you guys can look at that can help. But basically the idea is that the way that you determine whether or not people are actively trying to solve a problem is you talk to them. You have one-on-one conversations with them. Once you've had conversations with them where they're telling you, here's what I've done to try and solve this problem in the past, then you move on to the next phase of product market fit, offer testing. So offer testing is, okay, I've identified people who are actively trying to solve the problem. Now, if I offer them a solution through the marketing channels that they tell me about during my customer interviews, and with the marketing copy they tell me to use during my customer interviews, by the words that they use, by the emotions they express, if I put together a marketing plan based on my customer interviews, do people engage with that offer? Do they try and accept the offer? Will they click through on my ads? Will they respond to my emails? Will they come and meet me? What we're doing is you're saying, okay, I think I understand this problem a little bit. I'm going to go test and see, do I really understand it? And do I understand it so well that these people want my help trying to solve it? That's called offer testing. You'll run a series of experiments here. You'll run them with ads, with cold emails, meetups. You're going to hint that, hey, I think I can try and solve your problem, and you're going to see how many people actually want help solving it. This is your marketing testing. After you validated you can reach enough people to achieve your goals, then you're going to validate that people will actually pay you. Again, pay is in quotes here. They're going to pay you some currency. It can be actual cash or it can be usage of your product So here you're going to measure with like a landing page. You're going to do some pre-sales. You're going to pre-sale the product before it's available. You're going to sign what are called letter of intents for business-to-business scenarios. So you're going to say, basically in the B2B scenario, you're going to sit down with a customer and say, hey, look, this is the problem that we want to solve. Here's how we think we want to solve it. But before we invest our time and energy into this, I need to make sure that I have at least 5 customers who are on board, not only for our benefit, but for yours as well. We want to make sure that we don't just build this company and disappear. So I need you to sign what's called a letter of intent, and it's a non-binding legal agreement that they agree that if you meet these criteria, that they will seriously consider using your product. And again, it's non-legally binding. It's basically the business-to-business form of a pre-sale. So that's currency testing, where you'll do that. Only after you've done currency testing, only after you've proven they will actually give you the money, do you actually move on to utility testing. And utility testing is where you test whether or not you can actually solve the problem. And you test that not with software, not with code. The most efficient way to test this is to do it manually. So if you've ever heard of a concierge MVP or Wizard of Oz MVP, the idea here is that the most efficient way to solve a problem, at least the first couple times, is to do it yourself manually. Why? Because software is very expensive to write, it's very expensive to update, and it's very expensive to get correct. A human-to-human interaction, there's so much easier to actually change the nuances of how the product works and how your workflow works. And so you really want to try and do a manual solution first, so that as you get feedback, you can quickly incorporate it into your solution. Now, during this phase, you'll measure something called lifetime value and your viral coefficient to determine whether or not you're actually solving the problem sufficiently. Remember that Mark Andreessen quote about you need to be in a good market and with a product that satisfies that market? This is where you're testing, are you satisfying that market? Once you've proven you can satisfy that market manually, now you're ready for scaling. Now you're ready to actually grow and continue doing what you're doing in an automated way and start testing different customer segments and different channels. So here's where you actually build the product. Here's where you actually go into those larger segments. Remember when I said in one of the examples, someone said, it's all people are my customers? Well, eventually, when you're ready to scale, all people can be your customers. But for right now, you're going to start with your early adopters, the people looking to solve the problem. All right, so this is the 5 phases of product market fit. If you want to, in the notes section here, I'll go back, you'll see that there's actually them written out here. You can write them down so that you have basically a cheat sheet, because what we're going to do soon is you're going to figure out sort of what phase you're at. But basically, it might be helpful to know what phase you're in. Okay, so I got a question here about, can you explain further the concept of utility testing? Absolutely. So what happens during utility testing is this is like the classic MVP stage, where people I'm going to build an MVP. This is what happens here, except a couple of things happen. When someone says I'm going to build an MVP, they almost never mean a manual solution. They almost always mean a product. And so when they say things like that, they're starting here, even though they haven't done any of these things. And these are all required to build a really good MVP. So it's a recipe for disaster. What I talk about in utility testing is take any problem. Any problem that we want to have solved can almost always be solved manually. If it can't be solved, it absolutely cannot be solved manually whatsoever. Then you're going to build as little technology as you can to test whether or not you can actually solve the problem. Because the trap we fall into here during utility testing most often is that we want to build a really great product and we get obsessed with making it super high quality, and we fall into this rabbit hole and spend a bunch of different time and energy building something that no one wants. So what you want to do instead is you want to work with your customer. You found out the problem that they're trying to solve here, and now you're just going to manually solve it. So for example, like this workbook that I've been building. I didn't start off writing a whole workbook, and I didn't start off with this whole platform that you're using. I started off in accelerators, working one-on-one with founders, trying to help them take the steps towards achieving product market fit. So that's one example. Another example. One of the guys I was working with in his startup, he had this really great idea for a protein shake at a gym. And so the idea was that, you've just done your workout, you didn't bring stuff to have your protein shake. So he made a vending machine that would actually make the protein shake for you. So what he would do is, this will be a little bit of a currency test, and then I'll talk about a utility test. So what he did is he put together a fake vending machine. Like the vending machine, it had a little credit card reader on the front and a little screen on top. But whenever someone would sort of swipe the card, he would be sitting at the back of the room, and he just sort of reading a magazine. And when he would swipe the card, he would count that like, oh, that's a currency test. Someone has just tried to buy my product. And instead of actually building the whole machine and having someone, having it actually blended and poured out, he would just walk up to the person and say, hey, thank you so much for purchasing this. I actually have the shake right here. I'll give you one for free. And he would pour one for him. So this is a manual solution. This is him manually mixing this stuff up, pouring it and giving it to him. And then he would do a test like, is it, he would ask, he would measure, would they come back and buy it again the next week. So that's the kind of utility testing that we're talking about here. That's a manual solution to a problem. Okay, great. So we got a couple other great questions here. I'm gonna sort of go through these. How can I manually test a solution, new kind of social network? Well, here we go. So this is a really great question. I'm glad you're asking, because this is the kind of thinking that gets us into trouble. This idea of, here, let me move on to, well, you guys can see it. I'm answering it right now. How can I test a manual solution of a new kind of social network? If you are focusing on the product, you are doomed to not be able to do it, because you're saying test a manual solution of a social network. A social network isn't a problem. A social network is a solution to a problem. So you're saying, like, how can I test a new solution for an iPhone app that takes pictures of cats automatically? It's like, there's no solution. That's not a thing. You need to be thinking about how you can solve someone's problem manually. So what problem does your social network solve for people? And remember that social networks, they're a thing because people interact socially in real life. So anything that you're trying to do with a social network, you should be able to mimic at least with an email list, with Facebook tools, something else that's already out there. You don't need to build your own solution. Which, by the way, if you guys have heard of Product Hunt is an amazing tool. They're having huge success right now. They're blowing up. And they are basically a kind of social network for people who release products and people who love products. And so they connect these two and they vote up these products, and it's growing like gangbusters. It's crazy. Do you want to guess how they started? Product Hunt starts with an email list. So it's not like a manual solution where he's actually writing it down, but it's not building software to do it. He sends out an email list, and then all of a sudden he's seeing subscribers grow like crazy to this email list that's just announcing new products. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about on utility testing, not building a solution from scratch to try and solve someone's problem. Great question. Okay. Next up. How do you do realistic currency testing without having a real product when they click through and want to buy, and you don't have to say that you don't actually have it yet? Great question, Michael. If it's the same Michael who asked the other great question, you are killing it today. Okay, so how do we do pre-sales in an ethical way is another way I like to think about this. So two concepts that I want to lay out. So how do we sell something to someone and measure their intention without having a product to actually sell? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to make it clear that it's a pre-sale. I recommend doing that. You can go the other way. So like when Daniel, the guy with the shake machine, he wasn't telling people that it was a pre-sale. In that case, I'm not worried about it because he can just walk up and then hand them the drink afterwards. But you don't want to set a bad reputation with your customers on sort of misleading them. So you want to sort of mention that it's a pre-order, but you don't want to do it in like a giant, huge way that's like going to dissuade a bunch of people from buying it. So you want to make it clear, but you don't want it to be the main focus. The second thing you want to do is something I call heroic recovery. And I say I call it, but I'm copying it from a company called John Lewis in the UK. And the principle here is that someone is going to try and give you money to solve a problem. And they're probably going to be a little disappointed that you can't solve the problem right now, immediately. So what do you do to turn them from a disappointed customer into a really awesome, crazy evangelist? You solve their problem. So whatever it is that their problem is that you're trying to solve it. solve it really, really well. Solve it so well that they are not just like excited that your product is coming out. They are grateful and they're eager to solve it. They're going to be your evangelists if you do something called heroic recovery, where you've disappointed someone and then you're just going to pile on the awesomeness on top of it. So if you ever had this happen, like, you buy something from a store and then you give it, you return it and they say, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. It's on us, it's free, and here's a coupon for something else. That's an example of heroic recovery. So those are the two things that I recommend doing. And remember that if you're solving a problem for them, they're not going to be that pissed as long as you're actually solving a problem for them. The other related question is what happens if you don't end up building it? So you can make it clear after someone engages in a currency test that, hey, this is a test and we're going to be in touch if this thing gets built. If it turns out that not enough people are buying it, just something to keep in mind, you're not going to ultimately disappoint that many people because there just aren't that many people buying it. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And ultimately, even if you don't build the solution, as long as you do the heroic recovery and you help solve their problem, they're going to really enjoy working with you. Okay. How can you assemble a group of experts or early adopters for a more sophisticated product? Okay, so Eric, I'm just going to hammer this home. You don't assemble early adopters for a product. So I want everyone to think about this. Everyone think about what I just said. You do not assemble early adopters for a product. I want you to guess what I'm about to say. You assemble early adopters to solve a problem. Solve a problem. Early adopters, when you think of early adopters, think problem. These are people who are trying to solve a problem. These people do not care about your product. Let me say that again. These people, and in fact, no customers care about your product. The only thing they care about is the problem that your product might solve. So the way that you assemble a group of experts for a sophisticated product is you skip the product entirely. You don't worry about that. You go have conversations with the experts, asking them, hey, expert, what's the hardest part about doing your job? And when you understand what challenges they're struggling with, what problems they're trying to solve, you will assemble them. They will come to you as long as you're helping them solve their problem. Fantastic question. I really, really appreciate you asking that one. Really good. Okay. What if the solution needs a product/prototype? If it absolutely has to have a product, then you can build it, right? But the goal here is to do the least amount possible so that you can test, are you actually solving the problem? So efficiency is the name of the game. So whatever the most efficient solution is here. Oftentimes that's a manual solution. If you need to write some software to do that, so be it. But just know that that's more expensive if you have to change it. Okay. All right. So Camille, let me know if I'm spending too much time on questions or we should keep going here. Okay, but I'm gonna rock and roll. Actually, here's what I want you to do. Camille, will you? I want you to type in a question for should we keep going, or should we answer more questions? And then I want everyone else to vote on those. So Camille, toss those in, push them to the top, and then everyone else vote on whether I should keep answering questions or whether I should just move on. Okay. So what if the solution needs a product? Okay, we just did that one. Okay. Hi. Okay. Answer. Great. Okay, it's working. People, yeah, vote on what we should do. Keep going. I'm seeing a lot of keep goings. Okay. So great. I'm gonna keep going. The answer is keep going. I'm gonna unanswer this one. Oh, we're catching up. A lot of keep goings. Okay. Here we go. I got it. I'm going to unanswer. I will answer a lot of these questions afterwards. Here we go. Let's keep going. Let's do product market fit assessment. So the idea here, what phase are you in? So we talked about the 5 phases. Let's figure out what phase you're in so you know what tests you should be running and what steps you should be taking next. Okay, so this assessment, this next tool, is going to tell you what phase you're in. It's going to tell you what your riskiest assumption is, and it's going to tell you what next step you should take. Okay, what phase you're in, risky assumption, next step you should take. Here we go. Let's make it active here. Okay, so I'm going to move over to the website here. And you guys are basically you'll see something similar to this. You're basically going to fill this out on your own. I'll do an example, but you're going to fill this out on your own, and then we'll sort of see how everyone pans out. The idea is, have you launched your product? Before I get to this, sometimes there will be, you will not know the answer to a question. If there's an option that says not sure, click that one if you're not sure. Okay, so have you launched your product? I'm going to say no, I haven't launched my, oh actually no, I'm going to do my lean startup peer groups. I have launched it. Are customers paying for it? Yes, people are paying for it. Are enough customers paying for it that if you keep doing it, you're going to achieve product market fit? Well, in my case, there were not enough people paying for it. Well, why aren't you on track to achieve product market fit? Not enough customers, customer lifetime value was too low. I'm going to, customer value, lifetime value is too low. Well, see, so why was my customer, because people were using the product, but then they were leaving too early. Well, why is the customer lifetime value too low? Customer churn was too high. That people were getting into the product, they were using it, but then, within like 8 weeks, they would leave the peer groups. Churn is too high. Okay, so then it tells me my riskiest assumption is your solution is solving the customer's problem well enough that they will continue to pay for it. So that's my risk assumption, that I can actually solve the problem well enough. Notice how it's a launched product that people are already paying for. They're already paying for it. So that means that I can move on to either currency testing or utility testing. And in this case, it's utility testing is the phase I'm in. And my next step is to test ways to increase the value my solution is providing to customers. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a chance to do this on your own, and then while you're doing that, hopefully I just built this piece this last night, so hopefully this will work, and we can sort of see where everyone's lining up. Oh, nice! So there we go. It's working. If you couldn't tell, I'm ecstatic because as I've never tested this before, and it's working. So we can see where everyone is on their phases right now. Okay, and let's see what. Oh, and look at this. This one's good. No. Okay, so look, overwhelmingly, people on this workshop are in nos for the first 3. So I'll refresh again. And basically what I want to do is I want to walk through some of these with you guys just to give you a sense of, so I'm not just like sort of talking into the ether, so that we're all on the same page. So it looks like these are the most popular right now. We've got 52 people who are no. So let's just walk over what that looks like real quick. So if I say, have I launched my product? No, I haven't launched my product. Have you generated any pre-sales or letter of intents? No. Have you identified a problem that at least 60% of your customers are trying to solve? No. Then your riskiest assumption is customers are actually trying to solve the problem you're trying to solve. So we know this from the 5 phases of product market fit. If I go over here, let me go here. You guys, let's see, 52 of you or so. How many we got now? Let's refresh this. Yeah, 58 of you guys are in this boat where your next step is to do these customer interviews. And there's a straightforward process on how to do this. I've got some blog posts that'll help. For what it's worth, I've also included just the exercise that's going to help you take this next step. So we might be able to even look at this. I've built this one and I've included it. So since there are so many people here, we might be able to actually take a dive and play with this today. But yeah, regardless of whether or not you use Focus to do this, what I want you to know is that your job is to interview your customers. And that means that you're going to have to solve a couple problems to be able to interview your customers. You're going to have to have a sense of who they are. And by that I mean you're going to have to basically brainstorm who it is you want to serve and what problem they have. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to identify what someone would do if they were actively trying to solve that problem, and that's that exercise that we'll jump into. And then you're going to ask them for the interview, and then you're going to ask them a very specific set of questions during that interview. So I'll make sure you guys are hooked up with the interview script and before we leave, so that you guys know, since there's a ton of you out there who are in that spot. Okay. So feel free to ask questions about that, and I'm going to just check in. So it looks like we've got the vast majority are going to be in the finding early adopters phase, which is perfect, by the way. I would argue that most people should be there anyway. The folks who are in currency testing, They may have very well gone through offer testing and gone through finding early adopters, which is great if they're on to currency testing. If it turns out you're in currency testing and you run some experiments and they don't go your way, and it turns out, oh, you know what, you run your landing page tests, you run in your pre-sales, and you're not actually converting, you can always fall back to offer testing or finding early adopters. And that's why this next exercise that we're going to do is going to be so helpful, because it's applicable to almost everybody. Because at some point or another, you're going to have to go find your early adopters again, either for this customer segment or for the next customer segment. Okay, so let's see who else. I want to walk through a couple other paths just so that we're on the same page. So I got no, no, yes, yes, don't know. Okay, no, no, yes, yes, don't know. So let's go. No, haven't launched a product. Have you oh, sorry, I want you guys to follow along. So no, have you generated in pre-sales? No, no, what was it? No, no, yes, yes, don't know. Have I identified a problem at least 60% of my customers are actually trying to solve? Yes. If you solve the problem, will you achieve product market fit? Yes. And then the answer is, why aren't you collecting pre-orders or letters of intent? Let me make sure I got this right. Don't know how. Great, great, awesome. Don't know how. Why aren't you collecting letters or pre-orders? Currency testing. Obviously, so you're going to test that people are going to pay you. You need to charge customers via pre-orders or letters of intent. So what we just talked about are some of the keys, right? That you want to make these, you want to make your offer available. You want to get some form of currency from your customer. Some examples of currency. If it's real money, you're going to try and take a payment. If it's a B2C sale, then there's a service called Celery. If you go to trycelery.com, trycelery.com. It's a nice little widget. It's a tool where it creates a little widget that you can put it on any website, and it will automatically take pre-orders using someone's credit card for your product before your product's built. The nice thing is it won't charge them. So you can actually send them an email saying, thank you so much for your pre-order. We're running some experiments. We hope to have this for you by X date. And you won't have charged them. So you don't have to feel guilty about not giving them the value. So that's one technique. The letter of intent technique I talked about for B2B sales. You can search for the web. They'll be able to answer that question for you all over the place. And then let's see. Yeah, currency testing. There's basically an entire workbook. If you want it, like I said, I don't want this to be a sales thing, but if you want it, there's an entire workbook that's going to walk you through how to set up the experiments, how to run the tests, how to do things like price testing. So this is really fun, like figuring out your optimal price point. Hint, it's probably higher than you think it is. How to safely do A/B price testing without pissing off your customers, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, so that's basically where you're headed. Okay, I'm going to do one more. I'm just going to refresh this again and do one more. All right. No, no, yes, not sure, no. Okay, so no, I haven't launched my product. No, I'm not pre-sales. No, no, it was yes, right? No, no. No, no, yes, not sure. If you solve the problem, will you achieve product market fit? Not sure. Have you defined a metric that represents product market fit? Yes. The answer is yes, because you just did that. So this experiment, your riskiest assumption is that your marketing channels can reach a sufficient number of customers. Basically, you're in offer testing here, and you're going to test to make sure. So no, it should be here. I'll do it. It's www.trycelery.com. So Camille, if you could pop that one on the top or answer it for me. It won't be a link, but it should be try celery, like something you eat, a celery stick. C-E. There it is. Trycelery.com. There it is. There you go. I think, by the way, I've got a coupon code for those guys. Oh, no. I'll try and send it to you guys, that you guys can get a little discount. It's not much, but a little discount from those guys. They're super cool. So just in case you try it, you can give it a shot. Okay, where were we? All right, so riskiest assumption here. So in this case, you're in offer testing. So you want to prove that you can actually reach the correct number of people to actually achieve product market fit. This is that spreadsheet that I talked about. What you want to do is you want to test a number of different customer segments. You want to test a number of different channels to reach your customers to determine if you can reach enough of them to actually achieve your product market fit. So this is a little complicated to do on your own, but I'm going to try and explain it. So the idea is ultimately you've got your victory criteria, whatever that is. You're going to take that victory criteria, you're going to convert it into total revenue per year. This one is revenue. Remember, profit, personal income was your goal. You're going to convert that into revenue for your company. Then you're going to take that number and you're going to say, okay, from our revenue, we're going to charge our customers X number of dollars. You're going to make an assumption. You're going to charge them $29 a month. Okay, if we charge them $29 a month, how much do they need to convert at in order to achieve that revenue? Well, I need to get a 3% conversion rate to get that much money. Okay, if you need a 3% conversion rate, how many customers does that mean you actually need to reach in order to engage with your offer in order to achieve that victory? Well, it means that we need 100,000 visitors per month or something like that. So now okay, great. You need to achieve 100,000 people engaging with your offer. Now you need to run a set of experiments to determine if you can get 100,000 people into your channel. So that's ultimately what you're going to do. You're going to backfill from your ultimate victory into where you want to, where you're starting from a channel perspective. Like I said, there's a spreadsheet that will help you do that, but basically that's the process that it walks you through, is to go from where you need to be from the channel perspective. Okay, so I'm going to take this 107 questions first. How many customers are we talking about to have relevant proof of interest? Great question. This is a question about how many people to interview. Great question, Larby. This is your second great question. Thank you so much. Second question. Between utility testing and scaling, is the product/service just shut down? I mean, do you continue to serve customers manually while scaling? Oh my gosh. Oh, I couldn't have paid for better questions. These are fantastic. Oh, wow. Okay, here we go. So how many customers do you need to interview? Okay, so let's switch gears. Let's go back into the this section here. We're in customer interviews phase. How many people do you need to interview? You're going to start with 5. You're going to start with 5 customers. The reason why you're starting with 5 is that 5 is an attainable number. If I told you to go get 30, it would be overwhelming. You're going to start with 5. That means that you're also going to be able to access channels and use channels that aren't super scalable. You can do things like, oh, I'm going to go find some people who are commenting on YouTube videos. I'm going to ask them individually if I can do an interview. You're going to do one-on-one asks for interviews if you're only having to do 5. So you start with 5. The other reason you start with 5 is that oftentimes we interview a customer segment that is too broad. So remember, I used this example before. Someone who's like, I want to serve everyone. If you start interviewing everyone, you're going to find that they're trying to solve a huge, wide array of problems, and it gets way confusing. One person's trying to talk to their niece and nephew on Skype. The other person is trying to build an online platform for education. Another person just wants to watch cat videos all day. They all have different problems with computers. And so after interviewing 5, if you're not seeing a consistent problem arise where 60% of the people are all saying they have the same problem, then good, now you know you're interviewing too broad of a segment. So you're going to take the 1 or 2 people who have problems most closely related to your interests, and you're going to focus in on them. You're going to say, oh, you know what? It was senior citizens. I want to target senior citizens and their use of computers. Let me go find senior citizens who are away from their families and see if I can help them solve a problem. You'll narrow in on them. So you're going to get super niched on those people. Now, you are done interviewing when you found at least 10 customers who you've interviewed, of which 60% are actively trying to solve a problem that you're interested in solving. So you interview at least 10, and at least 6 of those 10 are actively trying to solve a problem. Now, when I say actively trying to solve the problem, that's typically they've tried to solve it within the last 3 months. If they're in B2B, if they solved it and tried to solve it in the last year. So you're looking for someone who's actively engaged in trying to solve this problem. Hopefully that answered that first part of your question. Great question. Second part of your question, between utility testing and scaling, does the product shut down? No. Great question. So what happens is, it's super cool. So instead of like doing a manual solution and then be like, close the whole thing down and then start up again with a new product, you build software the way software was meant to be built. It's like thinking about like a robot, right? So imagine you have a factory that's making cars back in the old days, right? We have an assembly line and people are manually turning cranks and wrenches and you're pumping out cars. They didn't shut the whole factory down for a couple years to build all these robots to make it, the production super efficient. They started one position at a time on the assembly line. So it's one guy, he first, he's doing it all manually, but the wrench is just not, it's not wrenching fast enough. And so they build him a new tool to wrench faster. And then all of a sudden, now he's getting repetitive stress injuries. So then they just replace that one person with a robot. You're going to do the same thing with your solution. Whatever it is that you're doing to solve the problem, you're going to start building manual solutions for people, building automated solutions to replace you. So you're going to basically replace yourself from the workflow by adding in automation. So there's an exercise in Focus. It's called basically it's feature prioritization. It tells you which features you should implement first based on the return on investment you're going to get from implementing them. Fantastic question. Thank you so much for that. Okay. All right, here we go. So I'm going to take this top. It's got a 103. Is there an already, if there already is a relatively similar competing product which is very successful in a different geography, can you assume that you would have customers, i.e., people that would use this, the people that would have this problem? Great question. The answer is no. People are different in different places. This is that you want to do this for several reasons. You want to do these interviews because it's going to determine that there are actually people out there who are actively trying to solve the problem. And two, you can't do the rest of these steps accurately without having done this. You will not know where to find your customers or what language to use until you've done customer interviews. You will not know what emotions to evoke in your currency test until you've done customer interviews. You have to do these if you want to, I'm not say half. You are going to be much, much better off doing customer interviews than you will skipping them, especially if you're targeting a customer segment that's different than the one that's been validated before. By the way, if you have a customer, a competitor, notice that there's no mention of competitors in here. I don't even talk about competitors. Competitors are irrelevant to me. The only time competitors matters is when a customer mentions them in an interview. Then you start caring. Otherwise, if your customers don't know about them, they might as well not exist. Okay. We're getting some other good. I'm going to take these high ones, the ones that have like 105 votes. Can we use this product market assessment after the workshop? Absolutely. I'm going to need to take some notes on all the things that I need to give you guys. But yes, it's available on my blog post, on my blog. Okay, so I need to send you guys a product market fit assessment tool. I'm going to try and get you that celery coupon. Like I said, don't count on that one. I don't know if it will still work. And I may have. I need to get you customer interview stuff. Okay. Great question. Of course. I'll just mention it offhand. The product market fit assessment is part of Focus as well, so it will always tell you what you need to do next. But yes, it's available on the blog for free. You can check it out and you can use it anytime. Okay. I'm going to make sure that we are all set on time. So it's 7:34. What I'm going to do next is I want to make sure you guys have. Okay, so let's just sort of recap what we've done with the product market fit assessment. So what we've done is we've taken this very confusing process of identifying all of your risky assumptions and we've made it streamlined so that you know what to do, when to do it, and now you know how to do it. Like so every one of those steps has an exercise associated with it. And I'm trying to do my best and I can do more if you want me to talk about how to do it with or without Focus. Okay, so your 5 riskiest assumptions, we talked about those. We talked about the 5 phases of product market fit. Hopefully you've written those down in the notes. I want to make sure that you also have written down what phase you're in, what your riskiest assumption is, and what your next step is. So in the notes section here, there's a spot for that. What phase are you in? What's your riskiest assumption? And what's your next step? It's really important to me that you guys leave this workshop knowing what your next step is. So if you have any questions about what your next step is, ask away, and then I will try and get to it once we're all done here. But I really want to make sure you know what to do next. Okay. So now I'm basically I'm going to look at our agenda and I'm going to try and figure out whether I should answer questions next or whether we should go into the next exercise. I think I'm going to take a look at this one question that's up here, and then I'm going to move on to who are your early adopters. So this question up here. What is the best method to document our interviews? Google surveys, questionnaires. How many questions should we ask them? And then what should you do with the data? How do we analyze it? Ooh, great questions, Anitha. Okay. The answer to all of your questions is going to be available to you very shortly. I'm going to offer you guys a free customer interviewing emailing course at the end of this. So stick around at the end, and then I'll get you a customer interviewing emailing course, and it will answer all of these questions. But to answer them briefly, I've got a customer interview script generator that will actually generate a Google Doc for you that has the questions in it. It has what to listen for answers, and because it's a Google Doc, that means you can share it with your teammates. Google surveys and questionnaires. I want to call out the difference between those two things, call out the difference between those and interviews. It's no surveying and no questionnaires for interviews. The reason is, remember why every human on the planet does anything? It's because we're looking for some emotional change. Emotional change are almost impossible to measure on surveys. So what emotions they're experiencing when they're talking about the problems. The other reason we don't do surveys is that we're looking for people to describe the problems they're experiencing in their own words. That means that we would have to ask a lot of open-ended questions in our surveys, and you know that people hate filling those out. Like, how many of those long-form questions do you enjoy filling out? So these need to be actual conversations that you have with people. You're going to document them in the Google form, or you can record them and then transcribe them later. And as far as what to do with them afterwards, that one I'll leave for the interview course, on how to analyze them. But yeah, you can get that, and we'll talk about what to do with those. Okay. Great questions. Let's talk about who your early adopters are. I'm going to go a little fast through this one just so everyone gets a chance to do this. But let's talk a little bit about okay, so this is, like I said, everything is predicated on finding your early adopters. So this is why I picked this exercise. So who are your early adopters? Well, let's talk about what an early adopter is real quick. Many of you have probably already seen this diffusion of innovations curve. Made popular by Jeffrey Moore in the Crossing the Chasms. And I'm just going to talk about 4 of the main segments of it: early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. Now, you are going to achieve your victory and you're going to achieve your success by winning over the early majority. There's one thing that's required, though, before you are able to win over the early majority. You have to win the early adopters. Early adopters are the people who are going to convince the early majority to come on board. So without these people, you will not achieve victory. It's just not possible. You as a new entity will not have enough brand recognition that these people are willing to take a risk on you unless they're absolutely desperate to try and solve the problem. That's why we target these people, the early adopters. So what I'm going to do now is turn on the early adopters worksheet. I'm going to hide, I'm going to make this one active. There we go. I'm going to go here so that you guys can see my screen, and then I'm going to hide the victory declaration. Hide that one. Hide. And then I'm going to go back to your early adopters. Great. Okay. So I'm going to make me a little bit smaller. You don't need to see me that big. Okay. Great. So it's another exercise where you're going to get to fill in the blank. And what I want you to do is I want you to write in your startup, the founder that you want to serve. And in my case, it's startup founders. So I'm going to do that over here. I'm going to do startup founders. And then below, then we're going to just sort of recap that your victory is going to come from winning over the early majority. But this exercise is going to tell you who your early adopters are. Like, what do they look like, where to find them, all that kind of good stuff. And we're going to start by winning them over. Now, the way we measure whether or not someone is an early adopter is based on their relationship to a problem. Remember we talked about early adopters are people who are already trying to solve that problem? We're going to dive into that and explore that a little bit more. So to do that, you're going to write in your hypothesized customer's problem. So in my case, My customer is going to say something like, I'm not sure how to apply Lean Startup. Now, this is really important. This is really key. I don't have the ability to give feedback on this worksheet, so I'm just going to say it really clear, and I need you guys all to pay attention to this. The problem must be phrased as if me, not you, but I approached your customer and asked, what's the hardest part of being a startup founder, or whatever your customer segment says. So it needs to be phrased in their words. It can't be something like, I want a lean startup peer group. That's not a problem. That's a solution. So instead, their problem is going to be something like, I'm not sure how to apply lean startup. So it needs to be in their words. It needs to be a problem associated with them. So go ahead and write in your problem that you think your customers might be having. And don't worry about if it's not everyone who's trying to solve that problem. Just write in a hypothesized problem that you think they might have. Okay. Now, let's dive in. Oopsie. I'm getting ahead of myself. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure the relationship to our customers' problems. And that's going to tell us whether we're talking to a laggard, late majority, early majority, or early adopter. So a laggard is someone who literally doesn't have the problem that we're trying to solve. So I'm going to put an X in here. That means no. No, they don't have the problem I'm trying to solve. And actually, I'm not going to worry about this. I'm just going to do this right here. Okay. So a laggard is someone who doesn't have the problem. So for my example, a successful serial entrepreneur is someone who is a startup founder, but they literally do not have this problem. So I should definitely not be talking to them. Someone who doesn't have the problem also doesn't know they have a problem, and they're not paying to solve it. So XXX, just X down that entire row. Your late majority is slightly different. Your late majority has the problem, but they don't know they have the problem. So go ahead and write in a Y and an XX, or yes, no, no, for late majority. So the difference here is that this is a person who has a problem but doesn't know they have a problem. So an example in my case might be someone who's using the words MVP as if it's a beta. Someone who is talking about product market fit, but who hasn't actually sort of taken the time to figure out what it means to them. That's someone who I can tell has this problem. They're not sure how to apply Lean Startup, but they don't know that they have the problem. If you've ever run into customers where you feel like you have to educate them and tell them, like, oh my gosh, you have this problem, or they're not as excited about the problem as you are, that's because they're in the late majority. You don't want to target them. We're going to skip them. The early majority, these are people who have the problem, and they know they have the problem, but they're not actively trying to solve it. So in my case, this would be someone who, let's say, or I'm saying actively trying to solve it, they're not paying to try and solve it. Now, when I say paying, again, paying's in quotes, because they might not be paying money to solve the problem, or they might not be paying by using the product. So this is someone who's like, Oops, oh, I'm going too fast. This is someone who is, in my case, someone who is, maybe they're reading blog posts about Lean Startup. They're going to free events about the Lean Startup, but they're not paying to solve it. As in, because my victory requires revenue, I need someone who is paying money to attend workshops and whatnot. So those are my ultimate customers, are the people who are paying. So my early majority are people who are not paying. So that's close. You're getting closer to your customers when you're targeting them, but you're not quite there yet. Your early adopters are people who have the problem, know they have the problem, and are paying to solve it. So this is who you're ultimately trying to target. You're trying to target people who are in this segment, who are experiencing this problem, and are doing all three of these things, mostly paying to try and solve it. So, with that in mind, you can figure out how to find these people. So how to get your interviews with them, how to market to them, all that good stuff. So, what you're going to do is below, you're going to fill out behaviors that you hypothesize they are going to take. What steps would these people take to try and solve this problem? Easiest way to do this is kind of put yourself in their shoes and imagine if you were them, what would you try and do to solve the problem? So I'm going to put down a couple of these. So one is like someone would go to a Lean Startup machine. This is a paid workshop where someone goes and they try and learn Lean Startup. So that's someone who is my customer segment, or who is my early adopter. They would pay for an online course on Lean Startup. They would pay to go to the Lean Startup Conference. They might make a call on Clarity. They might buy Ash Moira's book. They might enroll in the Founder Institute. These are all people who know they have a problem and want help applying Lean Startup, and they are actively trying to solve it. So that's where my early adopters are. So I'm going to give you guys 90 seconds again to figure out at least 3, but try and get all 6 of your behaviors written down. What steps would you take if you were trying to solve this problem? And what steps do you think your customers might be taking to try and solve this problem? All right, 90 seconds and go. All right, so we got about a minute left. All right, so hopefully you got about 10 seconds left. Hopefully you're coming up with at least 6 steps your customers are actively trying to take to try and solve this problem. Okay, so now we need to turn those into something we call externally observable behaviors, which is just a really nerdy way of saying, okay, great, these are the behaviors they're taking, but how are you going to be able to find people who are taking those behaviors? Because like in my case, I don't know, I don't have access to Lean Startup Machine's attendee list. So like, how am I going to know if there are people actually there? I mean, one is I can go down, I can actually go and visit a Lean Startup Machine, but if there aren't any going on in my area, what am I going to do? So now you're going to convert each of these into an externally observable behavior. What's some way that you, individually you, can go and find 1, 2, 3, 5 people who are taking action to solve this problem? Okay, so someone who tweets about Lean Startup Machine. So if someone has just tweeted about Lean Startup Machine and I want to interview them as an early adopter, I can go search for Lean Startup Machine, send them a tweet saying, hey, I'm really interested in solving problems for early stage founders. Can I have a conversation with you? Boom, just like that. We're almost always guaranteed. I shouldn't say that. About 50% of the time, you'll get a response back with a really nicely crafted cold email or cold message, which by the way, in the email course, I'll tell you how to send those messages. Okay, how about an online course? Well, how can I tell if someone's paying for an online course? If they've left a review. Remember, I'm only going to start with 5 interviews, so I just need to find 5 people who are taking action, who I can observe that have tried and solved this problem. Makes a call on Clarity, same thing. If they leave feedback on Clarity, if they've reviewed Ash's book, if they've joined Founder Institute meetup group, if they've actually joined a community. So these are all things that these are actions that people have taken that I, as an outsider, can observe, and I can use them to help identify people who are actively trying to solve the problem. So this is how you're going to set up your first set of interviews. And this is how you're going to ultimately, these are the channels that you're going to use ultimately to help tell people and offer a solution to the problem that you're putting together. Okay, so I'm going to give you another 90 seconds to fill these out, convert these into externally observable behaviors. So, rock and roll. Seeing some really great questions come up. I'm super excited. So what I'm going to do for these questions, by the way, is I'm going to hang out for another, I don't know, maybe another half an hour or so, and I'm just going to answer as many of these questions as I can because we're not going to get to them all. If you have to leave, obviously, feel free to. But the recording will be up and will have me answering these questions, so they'll be available to you. Okay, so let's do another 30 seconds of this, converting these into externally observable behaviors. All right. I see a great question up here about interviews in a non-leading way. I'm going to hit that up. I'm definitely going to hit that up. It's a great question as soon as we wrap this up here. Okay, so there you have it. You now know what early adopters are. By the way, Camille, if there's any questions that are like super pertinent to what we just covered, go ahead and mark them as answered, and I'll pop them up and I'll do them right now. Otherwise, I'm going to sort of rock and roll. But I'm going to try and get to all the ones over 100 before the end of the night. Okay, so what are early adopters? Early adopters, you already know this, but early adopters are customers who have the problem, who know they have the problem, and are paying to solve it. They're taking some action that you need to achieve your victory to solve that problem. So where are yours? Like, how do you find yours? Well, you already know the answer now. They're in your externally observable behaviors. So for me, they're in the tweets, they're in the online reviews, they're in the feedback, they're in the meetup groups. That's where I go to find these early adopters. So that's where you're going to go to find your early adopters. Okay, so we're going to get to questions, and basically this is the last exercise. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to do a wrap-up review of the entire thing, then I'm going to punch through these questions, and then you guys can feel free to hang out as long as you want. There's some free goodies if you want to stick around. I won't make you wait very long at all. I'll probably come up in the next couple of minutes if you want to hang out. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to write down your early adopters. So in your notes section, let's go back here to the notes and the takeaways. There's a section down here for where are your early adopters. Go ahead and write in your early adopters. So you can just copy and paste if you want. You can go back to your notes field here. Let me see, where's mine? Early adopters. Go back in here and you can just take these and you can just Control A, copy, and you can go back in here and you can just paste them in. Boom, just like that. And you can take those with you. So make sure you've got those in there because, like I said, even if a lot of you need to do interviews, which is great, which is exactly where we want you to be. But even if you're not, knowing where your early adopters are is going to be really helpful. Okay, so let's recap what we did. So we talked about who I am. We talked about what is product market fit. You defined product market fit by declaring victory. We know that product market fit, originally coined as being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. We changed it to a market that can achieve your goals, which we changed again to product market fit is satisfying a market that satisfies you. By satisfying you, you're going to make all your decisions easier going forward. It's going to give you the confidence to pivot. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've been going through these slides, and the slides aren't even up. Okay, anyway, so going through this is it's going to satisfy you. It's going to, when you figure out what satisfies you, you're going to give you the confidence to pivot, and just going to unify your team. The path to product market fit. We talked about this. We talked about how confusing a riskiest assumption strategy is. We talked about that there are 5 riskiest assumptions. They go in a very specific order. We talked about how those associate with the 5 phases of product market fit. By the way, I saw a question about this framework, is it involved in focus? If you look at the first letter of every phase, this is why it's called focus. So focus is broken up into 5 workbooks. Each workbook is dedicated to one of these. So each workbook has between 6 and 12 different experiments that you will run to actually validate each one of these phases, and you'll move from workbook to workbook. Okay, we talked about we did the product market fit assessment that tells you what phase you're in, what's your riskiest assumption, and what your next step is. And then we talked about where to find your early adopters. So we just did that right now. So we know who they are and that people who have the problem know they have the problem and are paying to solve the problem, and we know where yours are. Okay, so free goodies that I want to give you guys. So bonus number one, I mentioned this, the free email course. Let me hook you guys up with this. I'm going to take away the product market fit assessment, and I'm going to turn on the bonus. So hopefully you guys should see the bonus section now. And in here, there are two bonuses sort of rolled in one. So if you get one, you'll get them both. And the idea here, let me just do free email course. So this is an email course that I'm going to build. Basically, I already knew that I was going to throw some emails in, but I'm going to throw in the other ones around product market fit assessment. I'm going to make sure you guys have access to that. And then I'm also going to include the celery coupon code in there. And then, of course, all the customer interviewing script, including like how to analyze interviews. That'll all go in there. So if you want that and the bonus number two, is the Focus Framework Launch Day coupon code. So what this is that on May 3rd, I'm going to start the crowdfunding campaign for Focus. Now, it's a kind of fun and different crowdfunding experience. Focus is already done. Like you can tell, like the exercises are already done and finished. The electronic version is. But I want to do printed version of these workbooks so people can actually write them out and take them and have worksheets and stuff like that. So to print them, I have to do a big print run, and we're going to start that on May 3rd. So right now, we've sort of paused all sales until May 3rd. But on May 3rd, if you want a coupon code for $20 off on that day, then just sign up below. You'll get both the email course and you'll get the coupon code for Focus. And like I said, even if you're not interested in Focus, but you want the email course, go ahead and sign up, and we'll get you that as well. So yeah, just fill those in, and then we'll get you hooked up. And then the last thing that I want to just bring your attention to, feedback. I could really, really, really use your feedback on this experience. So I haven't made it active, but you'll see it's on the tab up on the top right here. So if you want to, you can go over and leave me feedback, and it would be really, really helpful. Like I said, this is the labor and project of love, this platform, so I would love to know how I can make it better. If you've got any feedback on the workshop itself or the content, I want to keep doing these things, so I need your feedback to keep making them better, and I need your feedback to know what worked well. So with that, I'm going to just finish up this. I'll finish up the slides, and then I'll hang around, like I said, for about another half an hour, and I'll answer these questions. Okay, so from here, I want to thank again. I want to thank Camille for doing such a fantastic job. Big thank you to Camille. So everyone at your own home, thank her for helping organize this. I don't know if you guys can see how many questions there are, but there are easily over 100 questions inside here, and she's done a great job helping to manage all this. So thank you so much to Camille for doing that. And of course, thank you to Founder Institute for making this all possible. Without them, we wouldn't be getting here today. Definitely check them out. They're an incredible resource. I really enjoy working with them, and I think you might as well. Okay, so with that, let's party on some of these questions. How do I want to do this? I want to do, I'll just hang out here, and then I'll do this. Okay, so now I'm going to answer the question. Any advice? You know what I want to do actually is I want people in the video to know what question I'm answering. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up. Sorry, this is going to get dark for a little while. I'll be right back. Okay, hold on. I'm going to do a screen capture. I'm going to do a screen capture of this section right here. And then we're going to make this big so you guys can see it. And then I'm going to put my webcam on here as well. So hold on, I'm coming back. Here I am. Rock me like a hurricane. Okay. Here we go. So hopefully this will work, and hopefully people watching the video can see which question I'm answering. All right, so any advice on how to conduct a customer interview in a non-leading way? Great question. That you're asking this already is fantastic. So the way to do it is to not ask questions about the future. That's the secret. Don't ask questions about the future. This is all written up in the customer interview email course, the details that I'm about to tell you. So if you want more details, check that out. It's got a nice video that I recorded as well, and it will have the customer interview script. But basically, the rule is don't ask about the future. So how do you know if you're asking about the future? If you're using the word would, W-O-U-L-D, as in, do you think you would use a product like this? How much do you think you would pay for this product? If you're asking those sorts of questions, you're asking about the future and you're leading customers down a path. Instead, what you want to ask about is, what have they done in the past? Tell me about the last time you tried to solve this problem. What sort of products have you used to try and solve this problem? Asking about the past means that no one will know which direction you're trying to lead. They will just tell you what naturally comes to mind. So great that you're on the lookout for that question. The way to do it is to avoid any questions about the future, questions about your product, any of that kind of stuff. Instead, you're going to talk all about them and all about their problem during the problem interview. Okay, great question. Next up. What about business-to-business products? Finding early adopters can be difficult in some business-to-business situations because of competition. So, yeah, let me just call out that B2B is hard no matter what. I mean, it's just hard. It's hard because these people are very busy, and it can be hard to get their attention. That said, business-to-business is easy. For the same reasons that business-to-consumer is difficult, business-to-business is easy, and vice versa. So businesses have resources. For the very select group of problems that they are trying to solve, they've got the resources to solve them. Business-to-consumer is the other way around. They can have lots of things they're interested in solving, but they don't have any money to solve them with. So the key is to find the problems that your business customers are already trying to solve. Now, the way you do that is you stop thinking about businesses as customers. This is, oh man, it took me so long to learn this. But it turns out that a business is never your customer. A person in a business is your customer. A very specific person in a specific role is trying to solve a problem, and they will be your early adopter. No company is ever trying to solve a problem. It's always a person in a company trying to solve a problem. So what you need to think about is what groups of people, what individual roles within a company are most actively trying to solve a problem, and then you need to reach out into the places where they are looking for solutions. So that's how you find your early adopters within a business-to-business scenario. Think of them as individual roles, and then measure how exactly you are going, figure out where those people who are in those roles are trying to actively solve their problem. That's how you find the early adopters. Okay, so let's hide this guy. Next up, you would need so many interviews. How do you incentivize people to have these discussions other than coffee or gift cards? Great question. It turns out that you should never be incentivizing anyone for a customer interview, ever. The reason being, you are specifically targeting people who are actively trying to solve a problem. If you have to incentivize them to talk to you about solving the problem, they are not early adopters. You are by definition talking to someone who's not an early adopter. An early adopter is someone who is actively trying to solve the problem and is so interested and eager in solving the problem, they would be glad to give you a half an hour, a day of their time if you would be willing to help them solve their problem. That's what you're looking for. Now, if you say, well, but Justin, how the heck am I ever going to find someone like that? There are so few problems out there that people are that interested in solving. Yes, that's the point. It turns out there are very few businesses in the world that actually deserve to be built. That's why so many fail. The goal of this process is to find the one that deserves to be built. Find the problem that deserves to be solved. So you're going to keep interviewing people until you can find people who are eager to talk to you about solving a problem that you are interested in solving. In other words, we're taking all of the failure that you would normally encounter by building a product, spend a year, fail, spend a year, fail, spend a year, fail. We're going to take all of that failure, and we're going to, instead of spending years to fail, we're going to take weeks or months. So month, fail, and eventually succeed. And once you find these people who will do the interviews and who are actively trying to solve a problem, things get so much easier. So that's a long answer to that very short and great question. Okay. Really good section, full of information. Thank you so much about market fit. Do we get this presentation or the framework concept as part of the session? Oh, so no, you do not. So here's what you get. You get all the slides. So you get all the slides that you got there. You get the video. You get the email course, and you get the coupon code off of the Focus framework. To be like lay all the cards out on the table. I would love to keep doing what I'm doing and offering these workshops and speaking and all this kind of stuff. But for me to do that, for me to achieve my victory, I need to have some form of sustainable currency. And so I'm doing that with the workbooks. So the workbooks are basically in-depth, step-by-step walking through of this process that I try to make as affordable as possible to founders. If you'd like them, if it's going to help you out, or you just want to support me and so I can keep doing this, then definitely support and check out the crowdfunding campaign. But I'm going to try and give you as much free stuff as I can still maintaining my own sustainability. All right. Okay. For the first 5 customers we interview, do we select from intended demographic or we just start with the general public? So hopefully we answer this question in the Finding Early Adopters exercise. You're going to start with the people who are actively trying to solve the problem. Those are going to be the people who are easiest to try and target. So hopefully we answered that one. If I didn't, go ahead and ask another one, but that's where you're going to start is the people you identified in your early adopters. How would I make this categorization if you are building a product for a niche market, patients with a disease? I imagine this is the categorization is probably the early adopter, late majority, that kind of stuff, that categorization. If that's true, you're going to be looking for the people who have a disease and who are actively trying to solve the disease. Now, just because someone has a disease doesn't mean that they're actively trying to solve it. Alcoholism can be a disease. Obesity could be a disease. There are people who could have these things and not actively trying to solve them. There can be even in a hospital and not considered an early adopter because if they're not paying for a solution, if they're not searching for more information, if they're not paying for alternative medicines, then they're not an early adopter. I would go find the people who are actively paying the currency that you need to achieve product market fit. Find those people, and that's where you go look for those early adopters. All right. How about if there's no problem, but when we tell people about it, they jump on the idea. This is classic. This is classic early majority. This is classic late majority. Let me tell you, it is so easy for someone to tell you that they like your idea. There's no cost to them. There's no reason why they wouldn't. There's no reason why they wouldn't even genuinely be excited about it. But that's very, very different than giving you the currency you need to actually achieve your victory. So luckily, if you're in this situation, it's going to be really easy to ask people to pre-buy. If they don't have the problem, but you find people all the time, then maybe you skip customer interviews. You go straight to offer testing or currency testing even. You go and run an ad campaign and you try and get a bunch of people to actually pre-order this thing. Because apparently, once they hear about it, then they're all over it. Okay, great. If that's true, then see if they'll pay you for it. If they will, then awesome. Then you've skipped 2 steps and you can just rock and roll and you can go find product market fit even faster. If they don't pay you, then something's got to change. Your marketing strategy's got to change. The problem you're solving's got to change. All that kind of good stuff. You may try starting a currency testing if you're really convinced that these people really want this thing as soon as you tell them about it. But I predict you're going to have a problem finding them, finding places that, especially inexpensive places, because you're probably going to have to use channels that you don't know where they are, like paid channels, and you're probably going to have a difficult time with conversion rate. That's my guess. But try it. Let me know how it goes. All right. If the early majority are not the paying customers, then how would acquiring them is victory? Make sense. If early okay, so what I think you're saying is that your early majority are not people who are going to pay you, then how could acquiring them lead to victory? Oh, wait. Oh, no. You're saying, you're talking about the early majority versus the early adopters. Aha. Okay. So basically, this is a question about how do we transition from early adopters to early majority? Why is it the majority are going to lead to victory? The reason is when you have to start with the early adopters, and once you have enough people solving the problem, the people who are not actively trying to solve the problem will start to see those early adopters solving the problem and say, oh my gosh, I guess it's easier to solve the problem than I thought, maybe I will look into that solution as well. And what will actually happen, they actually move closer towards early adopters. They start shifting from the early majority and like, oh, interesting. My friend over there is solving this problem that I knew I had, but I hadn't actually tried to solve it. And then they start to become early adopters themselves. They start experimenting with solutions, and yours may be one that you've experimented with. So if you've ever seen that, if you've ever experienced that yourself, where someone else, goes and buys a new gadget or does something that you're like, well, I'll wait and see. And then once they use it and it's like, oh my gosh, it works so well, then you buy on and you jump in, then you are either an early majority or late majority and you're jumping on board. So that's the behavior that we want to sort of see happen. You want to basically reach that tipping point where you shift from the early adopters into the early majority. All right. Okay, so can my own relatives and friends be counted as early adopters, or has to be total strangers? Great question. Yes, they can be early adopters, as long as you're using the term early adopters in the right way. If they are people who are actively trying to solve the problem, as in they're paying to solve the problem, then yeah, absolutely, they can be early adopters. You should interview them. Just make sure you use either my interview script or use an interview script that doesn't lead them, because they're going to want to tell you what you want to hear. So if you start asking them about like, hey, would you use a product that does something like this? You're going to get in trouble. As long as you ask them about their past behavior and what problems they're currently trying to solve, friends and family are perfect to interview. All right. Do we need to take into consideration the economic situations of the customers we are going to interview to make sure they will actually pay for the product, or if they can afford it, assuming they have a range on pricing available already? Great question. Ultimately, I don't ask about currency in interviews very much at all. So, I mean, the question you're asking is fantastic. Like, hey, is it worth measuring whether these people can pay us at all, during the interviewing process? And my answer is no, just because currency is a very, very difficult thing to gauge unless you're actually asking for it. So one thing you can do, you can ask, how much are you paying now to try and solve the problem? That will give you a sense of an anchor around basically what we call an anchor price, around what they're used to paying to solve the problem. But for the most part, I basically just ignore all that stuff, and then I try and run experiments to determine how much they'll actually pay. So for the interviews, you're just looking for, are they actively trying to solve the problem? How do they describe the problem? What emotions do they experience when they solve the problem? And what channels do they look for in their solutions to the problem? Fantastic questions, by the way. Just, you guys are knocking it out of the park. All right. So if you need funding to build prototype for utility testing, when in the phases should you be looking to raise money? Ooh, really good question. Yeah, how do we integrate this with fundraising? Okay. If you absolutely have to raise funding, you're going to do it after currency testing. Fundraising, that can be its own separate talks, but I'm just going to mention two things. Number one, investors don't invest in a dot. Investors invest in a line. And what I mean by that, and this is not my phrase, I'm stealing it from someone else, investors don't invest in a one-time point meeting. So if you walk up to an investor with some data, they're never going to invest with you the first time. What you want to do instead is you want to meet with them several times, and you want to show them the line you are creating in your growth. So if you think you're going to have to raise money, I want you to start meeting and building relationships with investors after you validated that there are early adopters. After you're finding after you're finding early adopters phase, start building relationships with investors. Start telling them, hey, I'm not ready to raise money now, but here's the customers I'm interested in serving, and here's the problem we're trying to solve. Next up, I will be doing offer testing. I will be doing this next phase, and I'm going to determine if I can reach enough of them. And that's it. You're going to start putting points on that they can graph, and then say, hey, you know what? Last time Michael came and talked to me, he was at this point, and he said he was going to go do this, and he did it. Great, now he's coming to me. Oh, now he's in offer testing. He says he's going to do currency testing. He's going to prove that people actually want to pay him for this thing. Okay, boom. He says it, and then he does it. Now you've demonstrated a track record of being able to execute on your process. Now you'll have two things in your process. Number one is that first thing, you're demonstrating the ability to execute. Number two, you will have currency. You will have customers who are beating down your door to actually build the product. This is what investors want more than anything, to mitigate the risk. They now know that, oh my gosh, he's already done the hard part. He's gotten customers to agree to pay him. I just give him money to build a solution for it, which is one of the easier phases, and then more money to go scale it, and boom, we're living the high life. So that's what I'm going to recommend for integrating this if you need to fundraise in the future. Okay, I think I'm going to do the rest of these 100s, and then I'm going to capture a couple of the 50s, and then I'll probably call it for tonight. All right. So how do I attain my notes before closing the window? I can imagine, Diego, you're like waiting. It's like, I want to leave, but I don't know how to save my notes. For right now, just copy and paste them into an email. Just select all, copy, paste them into an email, and you'll have them saved. Eventually, I might build some other thing, but that's the way to do it right now. And if you've been waiting for this answer to close your window, you can now close your window. Okay. What if the product is peer-to-peer based sharing of services? How to identify the early adopter? Again, I want you to think about, whenever you're thinking about early adopter, you think about problem. So when you say, what if the product is, and then how do I define the early adopter? We got to shift that thinking. What problem does the peer-to-peer sharing of services solve? You'll find the early adopter when you find the person who's actively trying to solve that problem that your peer-to-peer sharing service solves. So let's say it's like a tool sharing service. Well, you got to have people who are lending tools and people who are sharing tools. Well, we got to find the people who are actively trying to share tools right now. So who's out there trying to share tools? What problem does this solve for them? Okay, and then once you've done that, you got to find the people who are actively trying to borrow tools. This may be easier to do. So where are people going to borrow tools? Are they going to, like in the States we have Nextdoor. Maybe people are asking on there. Maybe it's Craigslist. Go and find the people who are actively trying to solve those problems. And then that's where you can start finding your early adopters. All right. Soft copy of the workbook. How can we buy that? Great question. That will be available on the crowdfunding day as well. So you'll get the $20 off for that as well. And there will be an online version, and then about a month later, I'll be able to produce the actual PDF versions as well. So you'll be able to get those. So yeah, sign up for the coupon if you want, or I'll just I'll hit you up and you'll know about it. All right. Okay. All right, so I'm going to hit up these 50s. Great. Okay, good. And then we'll party. So what if there are multiple beneficiaries to my system, a multi-sided market? Yeah, I said I was going to get back to this, didn't I? Okay, let me get some water and I'll hit this up. The key to a multi-sided market is to target one side at a time, and you always target the hardest side first. So for that tool sharing example, we're going to find early adopters for one of the sides first, and it's going to be the side that's harder to bring to the table. So to do that, you ask yourself, what's going to be harder? Is it going to be harder to convince, if I had people who are willing to share tools, how hard is it going to be to get people who want to share them, who want them to be shared with them? And then flip it. How hard, if I have people who want to borrow tools, how hard is it going to be to find people who want to share them? In this case, I think finding people to share the tools is going to be more difficult. So in that case, I would start with them, and I would try and figure out what problems are people out there trying to solve. Now, when I think of like individual homeowners, it's like, ooh, well, maybe they have problems like, I want to have a better sense of community. I've got old tools sitting around and they're just taking up garage space. So these are problems I might hypothesize they have. And then I would think about, well, what would someone be doing if they were paying to solve the problem? As in, what would someone do if they're already trying to share these tools? Oh, okay, well now, maybe they're donating them to a makerspace. Maybe they're posting on Craigslist or Nextdoor as well to share these things. Maybe they are hosting hack days or maker days or something like that. Maybe they've started a tool library. Yeah, so I started thinking about these things that they would be doing, and I would start to target them, and I would start to interview them. But that's basically it in a nutshell. And if you go to my blog is customerdevlabs.com. So the URL you're at right now is interviewing.customerdevlabs.com. If you just change the interviewing to www.customerdevlabs.com, go there, search for two-sided market, and it's a blog post explaining this in detail. All right. Answer. Please offer a quick recap of riskiest assumption. Sure. Your riskiest assumption is the assumption that if proven untrue is most likely to prevent you from achieving product market fit. So the riskiest assumption, imagine you've got all these assumptions, like what should you call your product? How much should you charge? What features should it have? How should you market it? Who should you target? Should you raise funds? Like all of these assumptions are out there. Your riskiest one is you take all of these and you sort them in order, and then you take you identify the one that is most likely to prevent you from achieving product market fit, and you go and test that one. What Focus has done is basically done all that sorting work for you to tell you, like, oh, by the way, riskiest assumption is always that you can find people trying to solve the problem, that you can offer them a solution, that they want it, they'll pay for it, you can solve the problem, you can achieve product market fit. So, thank you for that. Hide. How do I define the time frame that my product is going to need extra value addition, next version versus existing product in the market? Oof, Emil. Oh, I'm afraid I don't quite understand. Let me try one more time. How do I define the time frame that my product is going to need extra value addition? Oh, maybe it's how do I define the time frame, like when I'm going to need extra value for my product? I like this question. I don't think I've ever gotten something like this. So basically, if I'm interpreting it right, it's like, how do I know when to create a new product? And I've got an awesome answer for you. So back in utility testing, I mentioned there are two metrics you're going to measure. The first is one called lifetime value. This is how much your customer is paying you over their lifetime relationship with you. The other is called the viral coefficient, and that represents how many other customers they are telling and bringing to you as a result of being your customer. The way you know when you need to provide extra value to your customers is that when either of those two metrics fall low enough that you are no longer on track to achieve product market fit. So remember I mentioned in Focus there's these exercises that are these spreadsheets that actually track, like, here's where you are, here's where you want to be, and here's where you are, and here's the path between the two of them. Here's the path between the two of them. One of those things that you're going to be measuring is the lifetime value, how much a customer is paying you, monthly, yearly, etc., and the viral coefficient, how many people are they bringing to you. And that will affect the trajectory of your path. If those numbers start to degrade and you're not on the path to achieve product market fit, you need to go provide more value. If your product is degrading, your path is degrading, but you're still on a path to product market fit, then it's up to you. You don't have to keep providing more value. You can do something else instead. So that's how you determine what your next step is, or when you need to create a new version. Okay. Answer. We don't have enough customers because we can't access them easily. Suggestions. I'm really excited that you've come to that realization. This is a major reason why companies fail, because customers can be difficult to access. So first of all, this could just be good news. Good news in the form of bad news, as in, like, okay, maybe this just isn't a company for you, because let's say, it's only people you can sell to who are like top military officials and you just have no way to access them, then great. Good to know that now. That's okay, because that's not what your goal is in any way. Your goal isn't to build this product, so let's pivot to something else. So better to know that now than after you built the product. That's another thing. None of this gets any easier once you have a product. So don't be tempted to say, oh, if I build a product, it will be easier to access these people. It won't be. I promise. They don't care about your product. They only care about your problem, the problem you're solving. So if you can't find them in the places that they're trying to solve, then good news, don't serve them. If you really want to work at it, then the way to do it is to identify where they're looking to solve their problems, and then just keep trying to get in those channels over and over and over again, and see if you can find a way to help solve the problem they're already trying to solve. Okay. I'll rephrase my question. How can you assemble a group of sophisticated users for discussing the problem in a highly regulated field like, oh, okay. I mean, the answer is going to be the same. Go find the doctors or clinicians, have conversations with them, and interview them about the challenges they're having. My fiance is a educational psychologist, and she recently started a private practice. She left the school district and started her private practice, and she did exactly this. She called up pediatricians, and she asked them, and she set up appointments and asked them. They're super busy. They're really hard to get to. But she said, you know what? I'm trying to provide services that are going to solve this problem. Do you have 15 minutes to talk to me about how to solve them for you, or how to help you solve those problems? A lot of people didn't get back to her. A lot of people just didn't have the time. That means they're not early adopters. But a handful did. And those handful are now consistently referring her customers all the time, because she took the time to actually call them, understand what their problems were, and then actually put together presentation materials built specifically for them using their words and their guidance. So the way to get these doctors or clinicians is to identify what problem they're trying to solve right now. What problem are they actively trying to solve, and help them solve it. If they're not interested in the problem you're trying to solve, then it's going to be very, very difficult to interview them. It's also going to be very difficult to turn them into customers. So better to know that now than later. Okay. If an industry will be deregulated in the future, how do I interview early adopters before deregulation? Ooh, interesting question. Okay, so there's going to be something coming down the pike. So how do we prepare for this change ahead of time? Well, two things you can do. One, you can identify the people who are going to have the problem with the transition. So if you want to start building a company now, you can start doing that. So you can start building a service or software or something around people who are going to be part of this transition. If it's in the future, trying to solve a problem that someone doesn't have right now, it's super difficult. So if there aren't people out there who are trying to solve a problem because deregulation is coming down in the future, then I'm going to say there's probably not a business to build here right now. Right now. There will be in the future, likely, but right now there's not. And that's the thing. That's the case with a lot of these startups, right? The Apple Newton came out. It was the iPhone before the iPhone, but it was a decade too early. It wasn't the right time. People didn't have a problem that it could solve. So you may have to wait until there's deregulation. So go see if people are trying to solve the problem, and then if they are, then you can jump in and try and solve it. All right. What if the product is about doing the same thing cheaper? Okay, if you want to do the same thing cheaper, that's just fine. You have to make sure that people are out there actively trying to solve a problem, as in actively trying to find a cheaper solution to the problem. If they are, ta-da, great, that's your solution. So go for it, have fun. If they're not looking for a cheaper solution, so it's rare that someone looks for if you want to get LASIK surgery for your eyes, it's rare. Maybe I'm going to assume that people are looking for a cheaper solution. Like, oh, you know what? It's expensive, but I want to try. Let me see if I can find a coupon code or a Groupon deal for that. That may exist, but it's just something that comes to mind. Like, some people might not be interested in paying less for something that's super important to them. But if they are, go find and verify that they're actively looking for it, and look for them in the channels that they are. All right. What is call to action? Okay, a call to action is the statement that you're asking people to make on your behalf. So a call to action will be anything you want someone else to do for you. So if you send someone an email asking them to reply, your call to action is please reply. If you have a landing page where you're saying please buy or please order or prepay or whatever, then that's your call to action. So it's the action that you want someone else to take. Okay. Three more. Okay. How do you interview early adopters without revealing your competitive advantage before you have a product ready? Okay, so a couple things about this. Number one, when you're interviewing customers for problem interviews, you're not going to be talking about your product anyway. You're going to be talking about their problems. So you're not worried about divulging anything at that point. Number two, if you're worried about your customers, you're probably not worried about this. What you're probably worried about is that you'll go back, you'll start doing a letter of intent, or you start pitching you'll do currency testing for your customers, and you're worried that other people will find out about it. Like I said, I don't care about competition at all, because your competitors aren't going to do the hard work that you are going to do. Your competitors are going to start by building a product, and they're going to start testing backwards. You're going to do it forward. So that means you're going to take longer to get to market, but when you do, you're going to have a ton of momentum behind you. So, like I said, unless your customers actively searching out your competitors and you know that they are, don't worry about it. Just rock and roll. Even if someone knows your idea, remember, we only start solving the problem at step 4. Everything else, all 3 steps before that, those are the hard ones, and those are the ones you're going to be doing, and they don't require that idea at all. It just requires you to do the hard validation work. Okay. 2 more. Is it wrong to work on a technology even though I do not know the final form this technology will help people? Well, great question. It depends on what wrong means. If you're really enjoying working on this, if you simply want to build a product, if you have fun, and that's what your product market fit is, like I want a product that fits me having fun building and playing with a new technology, by all means go for it. Like, have fun, do that. If your definition of product market fit requires that other people use the software that you're building, then it's not the most efficient way to go about it. The most efficient way is to go identify the problem that people are solving and then go use some technology to solve that problem. That said, people have done it before. People go out and, like a lot of these companies that are out there today, it's sort of the shotgun approach, right? We have 10,000 people starting companies, and people just get lucky. They build the right thing at the right time, and boom, they take off. I say lucky. That's not to denigrate any of the hard work. It's always hard work. But I'll say they get a little fortunate. They build the right thing at the right time. So that could be you. So you can certainly go down that path. What I'm offering here with product market fit in the focus framework is the sort of a systematic way to make sure that you're actually going to achieve your product market fit. Okay. How does utility testing work if you are building a physical product, not software? Great question. So, I'm going to say the same thing again. I just want to shift it and make sure that, is your physical product required to solve the problem? If it's not, if you can do it yourself manually somehow, then you want to do that, because it's all about solving the problem. If you say, you know what, Justin, it is required, I have to build the physical product, then you're going to build the cheapest prototype you can to actually solve this problem. So remember the milkshake, the protein shake idea. The cheapest way to build that was to, have it wasn't a cardboard box, but have like a giant box with a screen, and then someone pays for something, and then he goes and pours the stuff into their glass. So come up with the simplest way to test it possible. That's going to be your best bet. All right, everyone. Okay. I'm past my half hour, so I'm going to hide this one. This long one's hard. Okay, I'll do it. There are only 3 left. I'll punch through. I'll persevere. You can no more questions. Okay, you can answer anytime. Any feedback is really my team is trying to build an online platform that automates. Okay, I'm going to actually skip this one because it starts with my team is trying to build, and I'm just going to skip it because unless it's about the problem, I'm just a little too tired. Okay. Find that one. You can feel free to send me an email though. I can't promise a prompt response, but I'll promise a response or a blog post or a blog comment. Blog comment will definitely get me to do that faster. Okay. Are there any comparable frameworks out there out of focus in practice? How do you compare? Okay, so comparable. So most of what's out there are sort of more theoretical perspectives. I'll say Ash Moira's book Running Lean probably comes the closest. It it provides a more practical perspective on lean startup validation, so it's less theoretical. What it's lacking is basically the organization, the structure, the how to start. It's more like, hey, here are some stories of how I did some validation work and some suggestions on how you can do it. It's more like my blog. So my blog is more like that, where it's like, hey, here's some random advice and tidbits on how to do some stuff. Focus is like a structured program that will help you, like, here, what should I do next? What should I do first? How do I run it? And then it also provides a place for you to actually ask questions in soft copy. So if you run into any problems, you ask me questions, I'll come in, I'll comment and help you out. All right. Okay, last one. What about a framework for testing when you already have product market fit? What do you suggest a growth framework to work on? So the scaling book, one of the books in Focus, is actually dedicated to achieving product market fit. So if you're already on a path to product market fit, I'm not going to be the guy to help. There are other people out there who are definitely going to be better versed. The scaling workbook, for what it's worth, it will talk about how to identify secondary and tertiary customer segments, how to leverage multiple channels, and then how to build an automated solution. So, fully automated that serves all those people, and how to track whether you're on the right track. So, this isn't really a growth workbook series. It's more of an identifying product market fit workbook series. So, if the scaling stuff is helpful, take a look. Otherwise, probably someone else better suited to help you there. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for those of you who stuck around, and for those of you watching this later. I hope this was helpful. Please remember that you can always use your feedback is really helpful and wanted. The bonuses are available. You can come and take a look at those. The interview course and the crowdfunding help on May 3rd. Any support or help there would be really, really appreciated. Thank you so much. This has been How to Find Product Market Fit. My name is Justin Wilcox, and I hope to see you again soon.